Emma remembered very well how her father left the family, trying to take almost everything that could be taken out of the apartment. She then returned quite late from celebrating her friend's birthday and almost fell, tripping over a pile of equipment and things, for some reason piled at the threshold. The girl even thought that someone had gotten into the apartment and was about to jump out into the entrance. But she heard the voices of her parents coming from the large room, which served as both a bedroom and a hall for receiving cheerful companies on holidays. Hastily taking off her boots, hanging her jacket on a hanger and throwing her backpack on the floor, Emma went to find out what was happening. And I found a strange and terrible picture. The parents quarreled as much as never before and did not even pay attention to the daughter who looked into the room. Emma, instead of her adored father, seemed to suddenly see a completely stranger instead. Cruel, screaming, with a pulsating vein in his neck. It seemed that this angry stranger would right now begin to destroy everything in the apartment. But instead, he methodically walked around the room and collected things, without ceasing to swear with his wife. Why did you decide that I was suitable for the role of an idiot? When were you going to tell me the truth? Never. Why were you so sure that I wasn't going anywhere? I thought that I was a complete fool and even stopped hiding my adventures. That's great. Don't think that this will continue. If you file for alimony, you know I will challenge it. Let them do the examination. I now know that all these years I was raising a daughter who was not my own. Emma froze on the threshold, shocked by such strange news. But the girl's mother did not look confused or offended. If she had cried, claimed that a mistake had occurred, and offered to double-check everything, but no. The woman answered her husband no less aggressively. "Oh, Andrew, you made me laugh. He doesn't want to pay child support. Will you demand an examination? Who will you make worse off from this? How are you going to explain to Emma that she is no one to you now? Will your heart not yearn for her? Remember how great you play with her, go skiing, even go fishing in the winter and go in the summer. What? Will you forget all this? Will you throw it out of your head like garbage from a bucket? Good father." I instantly forgot my daughter. So the man furiously threw everything in his hands onto the floor and swung his hand to hit his wife, but resisted and shouted, "18 years him. How can I still treat her if she is a clear reminder of your sin? You knew that I wouldn't forgive betrayal. Why then did you force me, although there was a risk that everything would be revealed, to raise someone else's child? Couldn't you wait for me? I went on long flights for the sake of my family. I tried to earn more money so that you wouldn't need anything. When Emma was born, I began to work even more. Why, with a child in the family, you need so much? But now I don't understand why I sometimes didn't sleep for days. It turns out that I didn't have a family. Only the wife is out for a walk and the child she took on the side. Andrew, well, forgive me, it was a random episode. A burst of passion, nothing more. I tried hundreds of times to explain everything to you, but I was afraid that you wouldn't understand. I'm so dread. The man even found the strength to laugh. You're interesting. In my opinion, I had the right to know the truth from the very beginning. Then it probably wouldn't hurt so much now. I quarreled with my mother for your sake. Although she seemed to feel your deceitful nature in her heart, Andrew turned away from Kate so that she would not see the tears in his eyes and noticed Emma frozen in the doorway. The man felt uneasy. He had considered this girl his daughter for so many years that, of course, it was impossible to divorce her overnight. Sorry, Emma, the man said and began to collect the things he threw away. And then, waving his hand, he sat down on the sofa. Blaine didn't know what to say. The girl solved the problem herself. Approaching the man, she sank down on the floor in front of him so that she could look into his eyes and said quiet, "For me, you will forever remain a real dad. So know that when you want to talk to me, I will always be glad." The man could not restrain himself, and in an impulse hugged the girl, whom he had considered his daughter for 14 years, and headed towards the door. Emma heard the head of the family rattling something in the corridor, but did not go out. In general, this situation seemed like some kind of strange, sticky nightmare to the girl. Only when the front door slammed did she dare to ask, "Mom, how come? Why did Dad decide that I'm not his own daughter?" Kate, who smelled faintly of booze, didn't lie. "Oh, but it's awkward to tell your own daughter this. But you seem to be an adult already, so listen, at least so you don't repeat my mistakes. I married Andrew as soon as I turned 18. He had already served in the army and got a job as a delivery driver. One day I brought some goods to the city, to the store where my mother, your grandmother, was in charge at the time, and he saw me. In general, I began to look after him. But both his mother and mine, of course, were against it. They thought that we were not a couple at all. My mother said that with a villager, I would die of boredom. So she declared that he only knows how to talk about the quality of manure, and it would be a shame to even go to the cinema with him, let alone to the theater. But you must remember your grandmother. You were already 10 years old when she left. Do you remember how she didn't mince words? Her grandmother, after whom she was named, was always, as they say, at the parade. But she could roll out a phrase in such a way that there was no wet spot left. Kate took a breath and continued to share a family secret with her daughter. The woman, the mother, who, like mine, also raised a child alone, did not stand on ceremony in her expressions. She called me a city reveler right to my face. She declared that she would not give her blessing for her son's marriage to a slacker. Well, who and when did young people listen to? We got married, of course. She went to the village. Here I settled in this city apartment. It seemed like we lived nothing. At first, at least, and then money became scarce. My mother refused to help financially. Like the kids themselves, since you already consider yourself such adults that you got married. Andrew's friends told him that cargo transportation was more profitable, and he began to travel. There really was more money. But I'm bored. I then decided to go to the alumni meeting and unwind with one boyfriend who had been courting me since school seemed to turn my head. It seems like he has started to catch up. I'm not saying that I was directly opposed. Well, of course, I had no reason to be proud of myself. It turns out that you really are not his daughter, but your real biological father, by the way, learned from me that you were born. But by this time, he was already getting ready to get married and had no intention of changing anything in his life. So I had to keep lying. His mother, as soon as she saw you tiny, began to insist that you were not their breed. At most, she came to visit several times and made her whole face look as if she had eaten a lemon without sugar, wincing so much that it was disgusting to look at. She never invited me to relax. My mother-in-law could not know for sure that I had cheated on her son, but she was convinced of it, and she didn't need proof. Andrew, I'm sure she was constantly blowing into her ears that you were not his daughter. Yes, apparently she planted doubts in his head, although it took many years. But Andrew has changed for me today, your father. That is, not really, but in general. Xenia began to make complaints to me out of the blue that I didn't take care of the house, that I was returning from work drunk. He began to reproach me for setting a bad example for his daughter, that is, for you. In general, I couldn't stand it in the heat of the moment. Blurted out everything that I had been keeping secret for a long time. Blurted out that you were not his daughter. So stupidly, with your own tongue, you destroyed the fragile balance. What, Emma? Are you going to blame me for not being able to save my family? The girl did not understand what to do. She was drawn to her father, and paradoxically, she also felt sorry for her mother. And it was also incredibly painful that the familiar world was collapsing. In Emma's class, there were many students from single-parent families. They seemed to be trying to pretend that the presence of both dad and mom together was indifferent to them. But the girl still caught the inadvertently manifested notes of envy. Emma was sincerely happy, considering her parents quite happy. Until this evening, her family seemed like a calm haven to her. And now it turns out that there was no idol, total pretense. There was nothing left of Emma's good mood with which she crossed the threshold of her house. It's an unclear, and therefore even more frightening, prospect loomed ahead. Before the court hearing, at which Emma was supposed to be asked which parent she wanted to stay with, Andrew approached her. He did not look the girl in the eyes and said, "Now, when I'm not traveling, I live with my mother in the village. It's cheaper and more convenient. I won't object to the payment of alimony, but you understand that I won't be able to take you in with me. Moreover, you are aware of the whole truth, and I'm afraid you won't find a common language with my mother. I raised you, but for her, you are a complete stranger. So ask the court to live with your mother." Emma flared up and, without being embarrassed by anyone, shouted, "Fuck you with your alimony. And a crazy grandmother who I don't even remember where to go. I don't need anything from you. I'll get by." Kate, who was talking about something a little further away with an acquaintance she had met by chance, jumped up to her daughter and almost ex-husband and took the enraged Emma away from Andrew. The girl, sobbing, asked, "Now let's live without his help. I don't want to see him anymore since he decided to eliminate me from his life." A divorce procedure for Kate and Andrew did not take much time. The court made all the required rulings, and the former spouses began a new stage in their lives. It seems that there were no major changes in the routine because the head of the family was not at home for a long time. But the situation became somewhat nervous. Kate, like many women, after the fateful changes, got a new haircut and began to pay special attention to her appearance. Of course, Emma wanted her mother to be happy. In any case, Emma did not reproach her mother, and she reacted quite tolerantly to the news, which came less than a year after the final point in the family's unhappy history. In general, daughter, they will come to visit us this evening. Freddie, this is my friend and his son George. I have 2 requests for you. First, help me clean up. Secondly, I want you to make a good impression on our guests. So don't dress provocatively. With this hopelessly ruined Saturday, a continuous series of troubles began for Emma. Kate literally crumbled in front of the guests, offering to try either a salad or baked meat. The lordly manners of Freddie, who presented the owners of the apartment with 2 pitiful bouquets of 3 tulips each, looking as if they were at least 1,000,000 scarlet roses, infuriated Emma. His son George caused even greater antipathy. He was only a year older than Emma, and with some pride told everyone present that he did not intend to waste time studying at school, and after finishing the 9th grade he would apply to college. Freddie nodded contentedly, listening to his son, and Kate, who always told her daughter that she should definitely get a higher education, also approved of this decision, but at the same time asked worriedly, "Well done, George, but probably in college there is no deferment from the Army." The guy grinned, "So I don't need her. I have chronic flat feet. I'm like my dad." In the middle of the evening, Freddie proposed, and Emma was offended that her mother did not even consult her, but immediately agreed. Probably it would have been easier for Emma to accept the next changes if her mother and Freddie had not decided to settle in the bride's spacious apartment and rent out the groom's home. When the guests, to the girl's relief, left, Emma, clearing the table, asked her mother, "Why did your fiancé and son decide to live with us if they have their own apartment? This is my joy, to make room for the sake of strangers." Aunt Pate was indignant. "No one will crowd you. We will accommodate George in the walk-through room. Your nursery will remain yours, and my room will remain mine." Emma tried to explain her point of view. It still turns out to be some kind of hostel. In my opinion, this is wrong. I can't even walk in my own house without clothes in the heat. Pleasure is below par. If you are interested in my opinion, it would be ideal if this Freddie of yours invited you to live with him. And I can handle the housework here without any problems. Kate was adamant, and then confessed, "We will need money soon, so you will have to rent out the apartment. I'm expecting Freddie's baby." Emma understood that her mother was still quite a young 34-year-old woman, and this scenario was quite predictable. However, the prospect loomed not only of constantly seeing a stranger and an unattractive guy, but also of becoming a nanny. She completely destroyed all the joy that the parent had found her happiness. Freddie, unlike the one whom Emma had long considered her father, did not bother himself with work at all, and most often lay on the sofa. George, to the girl's great joy, did not flash before her eyes for very long. One day, he simply packed his things into a bag and, asking his father for money, "In general, I'm moving to live with a girl. Everything seems to be fine with her. Besides, her parents moved abroad and it takes me 3 minutes to walk from their house to college. Waddle. All. Don't be bored. Or send money. Kidding. I will come for financial support myself." Kate tried to be indignant, reminding her stepson that he had only recently turned 16 years old, but he grinned brazenly and said, "But you should be jumping for joy that I'm moving out, and not pretending to be a caring mother hen. Besides," the guy nodded at his stepmother's already noticeable belly, "you will soon have noise, screams, and the stench of a child here. Why the hell do I need such happiness?" Freddie did not scold him for his rather impudent approach to his stepmother, but took money out of his wallet and, handing it to his son, muttered kind, "That's it, come on, go, the philosopher has been found." He took the bill handed to him and, picking up his bag, left. Just before the year 2000, problem and possible computer equipment failures were seriously discussed on TV. Emma had a half-sister, and so New Year's Eve spent with friends became practically the last island of calm in the period after my parents' divorce. Emma had fun, sang songs, and desperately hoped that the gloomy forebodings would not come true. However, everything turned out even worse than one might have expected. More than 3 years from the moment the mother brought the bundle with her youngest daughter from the maternity hospital, her eldest got the worst of it. It was Emma who most often changed her sister's diapers, threw them in the laundry, hung up the laundry, and so on in an endless circle. Freddie laughed from the sofa, looking at his stepdaughter and turning to his wife. Kate, you're great. You made a fuss about giving birth when you were young. First she got a nanny and then a cradle. Even preparing for exams was not considered a valid reason for not doing some homework. Only once, when Emma's temperature rose above 39 degrees, was she mercifully allowed to undergo treatment. Ira now sided with Freddie in all disputes. With her tacit consent, the stepson could take something he liked from Emma's house or ask Emma for a sum of money even without a promise to give it back. And there was no question of Emma buying anything for herself without her own money. The mother-in-law generally treated the girl like an empty place or a servant, and when visiting, she never brought the girl a single apple. Although despite the fact that he lived separately, she carried early fruits and sweets in bags to her adult grandson and her own granddaughter. Freddie then picked up the gifts intended for George and took them to his girlfriend's apartment. Simple-minded Anne, who from infancy saw Emma next to her much more often than her mother, treated her sister with the gifts she had received. But the girl didn't have the conscience to eat the child. In such conditions, Emma considered entering a pedagogical school on a budget to be a real miracle and made every effort not to be expelled from there. However, this became increasingly difficult. Another morning in the family began with a scandal. Mom shouted that it was time to get up and take her daughter to kindergarten. The girl resisted sluggishly. "Mom, but I can't do it today. I don't have the strength." Asked Freddie to take his own daughter, by the way, at least once. "Yesterday, after everyone else, I washed the dishes again. Only at 4 am I printed the abstract. I have my second day today, so I can easily sleep longer and not trudge through the disgusting weather to this equally disgusting kindergarten." Emma also wanted to add that she actually didn't ask Anne's mother to give birth, but she bit her tongue just in time. It was not the girl's fault at all that the main concerns about her were dumped on her older sister. However, even without this phrase, a quarrel broke out. Kate screamed in unison with Freddie that she, Emma, was completely ungrateful and didn't remember any kindness at all. "By the way, it's me, you slacker, who feeds and sings." However, there was nothing unusual in these reproaches. Probably, if Emma had not been so tired, she would have remained silent, as happened most often. But everything just came together. Workload with studies, part-time work, household responsibilities, generously placed on her by the rest of the family, irritation from the invasion of a strange man's apartment, and lack of sleep formed an explosive mixture. The girl fell asleep from fatigue, as she was in her home sports suit, jumped up sharply and, standing in front of her stepfather, began to reprimand him for everything that had accumulated. "Something I don't see is that your highness is overworking. Your mother is carrying everything on herself, and it's getting to me too. I really love Anne, but Freddie, it's time for you to do something for your daughter." "Oh, drone, that's who you are." The girl instinctively dodged, noticing how her stepfather's palm was flying in her direction, deciding to slap her in the face. Walking past her mother and running out of the room, Emma found George in the corridor. Friends that the guy was just taking off his shoes and muttered in greeting, "Let me eat it. I haven't eaten since yesterday's lunch. She started a scandal with me out of the blue and didn't even let me go home. I've been staggering all night and my stomach is just cramping from hunger. Come on, get moving. March to the kitchen. By the way, what's the food today? It would be nice to have some soup. Do you have any candy for tea? If not, go to the store." Emma, already angry about the quarrel, did not stand on ceremony. "And what you brought with you is what you will eat." Ends of the hallway, where a new squabble threatened to flare up. Freddie has already come out. He asked his son, me, "Why did you show up without even warning?" "Where else should I go if you, my only relative, live here? In the gateway, perhaps to live. In short, you'll have to make room. Now I will live here too." Emma's mood was completely ruined. One could not even dream of going now and at least getting some more sleep or just relaxing. George will definitely start eating plates now, turn on the TV at full volume, laugh, and make belching sounds. The girl muttered. I'll go. I'll take Anne to kindergarten." Immediately grabbing a backpack with rags, Emma led her little sister to the kindergarten, answering the girl's numerous questions along the way. However, the girl thought in her mind, how will everything fit in the apartment now? In the walk-through room, which George seemed to have previously wanted to give away, Anne has settled down, but now she will have to free up the territory for her blood brother. It's somehow wrong to place a girl's bed next to her mother and stepfather. This means that she will have to make room because it is simply impossible to get into the college dormitory. With sadness, the girl thought about the man whom she had long considered her father. However, after his mother divorced him, Emma saw Andrew at most 5 times, and even then, somehow in a hurry while running, passing by, he handed her gifts and, without even really talking, moved. For more than a year now, he had not seen her at all. The last conversation on the phone was crumpled. As the girl understood, Andrew was trying to cope with a personal tragedy, loading himself with work beyond measure. Attempts to call him were unsuccessful, but there were no replies to the SMS sent. Probably, if Mom had kept quiet about the secret of her birth, everything would still be fine with them. Now the girl has to suffer for her mother's old sin. As expected, in the evening the furniture was rearranged in the apartment, and with Anne's bed there was even less free space in the already small girl's room, but there was no other choice. The girl flatly refused to be accommodated in the walk-through room, which prompted a contemptuous remark from George. "Oh, you'd think someone would look at you." However, the guy was clearly lying. Emma noticed that he did not miss the opportunity to look at her unhindered. Since George moved into the apartment, the situation has gotten even worse. When no one was looking, the guy made obscene proposals to his stepsister, although he later reduced them to jokes. He hit the girl with slashes and slaps in the area below her back and laughed impudently in her face, noticing the fear in Emma's eyes. The girl repeatedly complained to her mother, who promised to deal with her stepson, but the conversation did not have any positive effect. George didn't care about Kate at all and, rolling his eyes, imagined the whole situation in such a way that it was naughty, but Emma who was pestering him. And Freddie, who was advised by his stepdaughter to reason with his son, began to defend him. "And you turn your sirloin smaller in front of George, also for me, depicting holy innocence. There is generally no place to test on modern girls." Emma realized that there would be no help from her mother, much less from her arrogant husband. Sometimes George went somewhere for several days. Only then did Emma sigh relatively calmly. One summer morning, Anne was taken to kindergarten by her mother, who needed to leave the house early so her eldest daughter could sleep a little longer, gaining strength before the last exam. However, Emma was in vain to rejoice at such luck, because while she was taking a shower, George opened the door to the bathroom in the most unceremonious manner, tearing out the latch on one side. Smirking, George said to his stepsister, hiding behind a translucent curtain, "Hey, move over. Or should we start with me rubbing your back?" Grabbing the first bottle she came across from the shelf, the girl threw it at the impudent man. It's unlikely that this could have scared him off, but someone rang the doorbell of the apartment demandingly. George muttered that he had been interrupted at the most interesting point and trudged off to see who had come. Emma hurriedly put on her robe and ran into the room to get dressed, but the strength of the door did not inspire confidence in the girl. And quickly getting dressed, she took pepper spray out of her backpack, deciding to use it without any warning if George got in her way. Without even drying her hair, she began to make her way to the exit. And fortunately, she did not meet her stepbrother. Judging by the sound of the water, he was in the bathroom. The girl was furious. She was running out of patience. Of course, she could change the protection to a stronger one, but she understood that this would not solve the main problem. She is defenseless in front of George, who does whatever he pleases. The girl did not intend to become a victim, so she planned a serious conversation for the evening. Having passed the last difficult exam scheduled for that day, even better than could have been expected after the stress experienced in the morning, and thus closing the summer session, Emma was glad that at least this problem was behind her. As agreed, the girl followed her sister into the kindergarten, and on the way home she was thinking about how to start a conversation with all the inhabitants of the apartment. The girl didn't want her little sister to witness the scandal, but she could be sent to the nursery to watch cartoons. What child would refuse? Meanwhile, she will put before everyone the main question that George living in the apartment is in no way acceptable. After Anne rushed off to the nursery, Emma asked to stay in the kitchen for Freddie, who was about to go to Emma's favorite sofa in front of the TV. George clearly did not expect that Emma would dare to talk about his morning prank and immediately began to make excuses. "I didn't know that the bathroom was occupied." It was obvious that he was lying, and the girl blushed with indignation. Oh, what a dunno. Didn't the fact that the water was on and the bathroom door was closed from the inside tell you anything? Why are you lying? The girl sighed in order to calm down at least a little. keep an even tone of voice and not scare Anne with her scream, and she continued, "In general, George, I can't stay under the same roof with you. Nothing good will come of it. With Mom and Freddie, you still somehow play the role of a simpleton. But as soon as you and I are alone, how do you behave?" It was noticeable that George was nervous, but was trying to find an excuse. How serious you are. I just wanted to joke. Just think, beauty. Do you even look at yourself in the mirror? I won't have any reaction to your appearance. A liter of wine won't be enough to make you want to look at you. Emma was not affected by her stepbrother's ridicule, and she gave her mother an ultimatum. You can't live like this any longer. I am very concerned about George's behavior. Mom, in short, either you kick him out or I'm leaving. Betty had been silent before, but intervened in the conversation. No, so go away. Get down on all four sides. You provoked George yourself. As the saying goes, it is true that if the dog doesn't want to, then the dog won't jump up either. It wasn't enough for you to accuse him of committing any illegal actions. Come on, get lost. There is no point in throwing mud at my son here. Emma was offended not so much because of her stepfather's words, but because her mother didn't even think to protect her. Kate was silent. She generally acted as if she had already talked about this topic with Freddie for a long time and decided everything was not in favor of her daughter. Mom, why are you silent? What, you can't even say a word in defense of your daughter, whom your husband is now insulting? Or do you also think that I'm provoking? Or is the presence of pants in the house more important to you with what will happen to your daughter even with two? Anne is also in danger. You never know what will hit this George in the head. She is small, and he will generally be able to cope with her. Freddie got furious. You rubbish. Keep your filthy tongue shut. Once again, I hear such suspicions towards George, and you'll instantly fly out of the apartment. From her stepfather's impudence. Emma was even confused for a few moments. She had no decent words. And then she, trying not to scream, asked, "Is it okay that this is my mother's apartment and I am registered here? How am I going to fly out of here? Maybe you and your youngest will liberate the territory. It's high time for George to join the army. But you made a fuss, somehow got him off. And now this slacker is groping me out of excess strength. So let him get out of here before I break his empty head. When will he pinch me again or dirty me with his eyes? Let this precious one go to his apartment, which is for rent, or, in the end, let him rent. Better yet, both drones, get out of here." Kate did not know how to extinguish the conflict that had broken out in the family and asked, "Let us all calm down, and tomorrow we will calmly decide everything." Emma was unpleasant about her mother's attitude, but she was so tired of arguing and fighting for her right to live in safety that she didn't even wash the dishes, as her stepfather tried to order, and went to bed. Emma had gloomy premonitions. Judging by my mother's behavior, she is not going to drive any of the men away. This means she will have to leave. Okay, at least the session is left behind. You can, as an option, ask to go to a children's camp somewhere, even if not as a counselor, as long as she doesn't stay here in her home apartment, where she no longer feels at ease. There was no sleep in either eye when she heard someone approach the room. From the creaking of the floors, the girl realized that the person on the other side of the door was trampling. Apparently, he listens to understand whether the girls are sleeping or not. It seems that the situation did not arouse any suspicion. The door handle slid down, and in the opening the girl made out the silhouette of George. He walked towards her bed and almost jumped when Emma's quiet voice rang out. "If you take another step in my direction, I'll wake up the whole house. You will explain what you are doing in the girl's bedroom." He also answered in a whisper, "It scared me. I'll think something." The stepbrother was approaching, and Emma, without hesitation, screamed. She screamed at the top of her lungs, as if freeing herself from accumulated irritation and anger. The girl no longer cared. She was not stopped by the fact that the awakened Anne and the neighbor downstairs, a not quite adequate bilious man, knocked on the radiator. Emma did not stop screaming even when her mother and stepfather appeared in the room. The girl fell silent only when Kate splashed a glass of water on her younger daughter's nightstand in her face. This did not calm the girl down, but made her cough from the liquid that got into her mouth. Anne came in crying. Kate reprimanded Emma about her selfishness and bad upbringing, but the girl didn't care. Under this terrible cacophony, Emma hastily collected her things. "I won't stay here for a second longer. I seriously doubt that George showed up here in the middle of the night to ask for forgiveness. In general, Mom, I wouldn't expect you to pay for your share in this apartment or completely remove this bastard from my field of vision. Freddie looked with clearly discernible anger first at George, then at his furious stepdaughter, and did not react at all to his daughter. Kate, clutching her head, went to get some medicine, reporting to nowhere. Lord, what kind of disgusting thing is it to organize a material showdown in the middle of the night? I need to take a sedative. Emma sat down next to Anne, stroked her head, said goodbye, and passing by the kitchen, where her mother was sitting at the table, reminded her, I'm waiting for a call as soon as possible. I'll come for the rest of the things later. I hope everything will be safe. The girl was shaking with anger, but she stubbornly walked to the station to go to the only person who could help her. In the waiting room, Emma opened a notebook for secrets, which it seems was given to her by her neighbor in either the 3rd or 4th grade, and I found the entry among the pages of the desired one. Andrew wrote this line a long time ago, when the girl still had what she thought was a strong, happy family, and said that this was his mother's name and her address. The man promised that one day they would all go to visit her to try to overcome past differences. The girl got her bearings and bought a ticket to the station closest to the one she needed. Judging by the information, we would have to walk about 4 kilometers, but this was not what confused Emma. She thought hard about what to say to Jane and how to introduce herself to her. Your son's ex-daughter, your ex-daughter-in-law's daughter, Andrew's friend, the one he considered his daughter for a long time. The girl looked through the options, but could not find the perfect one. But getting to the destination turned out to be as easy as shelling piers. And soon Emma was already standing at the fence with a sign attached to it with the desired address. The girl did not dare introduce herself to the woman in a tracksuit who was clearing the front garden of weeds. And apparently, it was Jane. And just ask, "Hello, can I see Andrew?" The girl did not even imagine that completely harmless phrases could produce such an effect. The woman threw herself on the ground and began to howl like a wounded animal. Emma hesitated only for a few seconds, and then, throwing her things, opened the gate and ran up to the woman. "No, Jane, get up. How can I help you?" The crying woman did not immediately begin to calm down, and only after a few minutes, Emma was able to lift her from the ground and bring her to a bench under a tree. Jane blew her nose noisily into a rag she took out of her pocket and ordered, "From home, bring me a mug of water and pills from the refrigerator." Emma ran into the house and, having quickly found all the necessary medicines, rushed to look for a mug when she noticed a photo of Andrew on the table with a black ribbon at an angle. The girl felt sad to the point of tears. She sniffled. Andrew was the only person whom the girl considered a father. And although due to Kate's fault, the relationship between the imaginary relatives was destroyed, Emma still missed him. She now understood what caused such a violent reaction from Jane, and was completely at a loss how to explain who she was and why she had come, so as not to torment the heart of the poor woman who had lost her son even more. If it weren't for the girl bringing Jane pills and water, and when she took the medicine, she asked, "Maybe we should call the doctors." Jane Ivanovna shook her head, and then wiped her eyes from tears and began to study the uninvited guest. The look in her eyes suddenly became prickly and angry. The woman painfully poked Emma in the stomach and began to accuse, "It's your fault that you and your mother are walking. They killed my son. Do you live happily ever after? Oh, you're a reptile. You weren't even embarrassed to come here to see me. Yes, if it weren't for your demon mother, you wouldn't have fooled my son. Now I know for sure he would be living with some worthy woman." I immediately told him, "As soon as I saw you a newborn, that Kate is rubbish and is someone else's child and is trying to tie him to herself." Didn't listen. And this is the result. He crashed his car, and it was as if he had never existed in the world. He didn't even leave me a granddaughter or grandson. They buried the damp earth, and that's all. There was Andrew. He is not there. Only the grave remains. Get out of my yard no matter what you came for. My eyes wouldn't see you. The woman, breathing heavily, rose from the bench and began to advance on the guest, showering her with choice abuse. Emma muttered an apology that Jane didn't seem to even hear, and ran out of the yard, picking up her things thrown by the fence. The girl decided to visit Andrew's last shelter. Still, she could not perceive him as a stranger. She saw where the cemetery was when she walked to the house, and it was not difficult to find the grave of the son of such a hostess who was so angry with her, a simple cross with a photograph and a plaque with 2 dates. That's all that's left of Andrew. Emma, as if all restrictions had been removed from her, began to tell everything that tormented her in front of the grave. Tears flowed down her cheeks, and she kept complaining. "Daddy, I don't know what to do at all. I need to look for housing because my heart feels that my mother is not going to exchange the apartment. I don't want to huddle there with these people. And it's just a pity. But not only can I help her, I can't help myself either." Of course, Emma did not expect that inspiration would descend on her in the graveyard and she would understand how to act further. But after talking out loud about my misadventures and sobbing, wistful emptiness set in. Having said goodbye, Emma came in from the side and, holding out her hand, stroked the photo of Andrew. "Goodbye, and don't be offended if I can't come for a long time." Emma wandered back. There were logs piled up near a fence near some house, and the girl decided to find out if there was any live-in work in the town next to the village. She took out her phone and became despondent. The smart device, the first assistant of a modern person, was completely discharged. Even without this trouble, my nerves were on edge. And although Emma thought she had no more tears left, she burst into tears again. The girl did not notice anything around, not even the buzzing of mosquitoes trying to sting unprotected parts of the body. Emma almost jumped when a mocking male voice was heard above her head. "Pearl, have you decided to build a pond here? But this is no good. We specially stacked the logs here for wiretapping, but here you are silent about them. Get up and come with me." Emma raised her head, wiped away her tears, and looked at a handsome man of about 25 years old standing in front of her. The stranger extended his hand to her. "Well, what kind of tragedy happened?" Emma did not share the details with the man and blamed her tears on her dead phone. "If you have a charger, then this is not a problem. My house is behind you. There will be a free socket. Let's go too." The man extended his hand to the girl, but Emma did not dare trust the stranger. "Ted, he ate you." A woman walking down the street shouted. "Who is sitting under our fence?" "Ted is me, and this is my mother coming." Judging by the bags, the evening bus arrived and the driver and sister gave us gifts. "I'll run now, I'll meet my mother, but don't go anywhere. We'll solve the problem with your phone." Emma had nowhere to go. Without the information support of her smartphone, she felt too insecure, and suddenly afraid that she might have forgotten the charger during her hasty preparations. The girl opened her bag and began to look for it. To my great joy, I had it with me. Emma exhaled. Now all that remains is to find a place with an outlet. She could try a local store, but she had no idea what hours they were open until, having taken the bags from his mother, walked first and, hugging the girl, asks, "Well, now aren't you afraid to go into the house? We won't be alone." Emma replied, "I'm not afraid, but it's probably not very convenient." "No. Come on. What's your name, by the way? Otherwise, my mother won't understand that I'm taking an unfamiliar girl into the house so easily." "Emma. Well, it's very nice. Take your things and follow me. You will meet your mother at the house. Otherwise, I see that you have already been bitten by mosquitoes." Richard put his bags on the floor in the kitchen and started charging his phone. "But it seems to be blinking. Now you have to wait a little, and then you can turn it on and use it." "Thank you." Emma began to thank, but didn't have time to finish. The mistress of the house appeared in the kitchen, breathing noisily. Looking carefully at the guest, she rested her hands on her wide sides and asked her son, "Ted, is this girl not one of ours? Explain who this is. Did you meet at our house or what?" "Mom, this is Emma." "Emma, this is my mother, Mary." The woman frowned. "I needed to see Andrew." Emma paused to control her emotions and continued, "Unfortunately, I was late." Mary turned to Ted. "No, this is not my own daughter. She complained at the bus stop. She says she came, gave me a heart attack and left somewhere, but it couldn't resist making an ironic remark. If my aunt had a heart attack, well, would she not go to the first aid station, but go to the bus stop? Are there any alternative methods of treatment practiced there?" Mary, as if not noticing the guest, answered her son. "Oh, Ted, you just need to be sarcastic." She wanted to pull this girl by her hair. She said that she regretted that she didn't give her mother a kick in the ass. When Andrew brought her to the house to meet her, the mother immediately guessed that her son would be unhappy with this woman. That's how it happened. But do you remember what kind of city he returned from a few years ago? They put it in a coffin, honestly. The women said that he brought almost nothing with him. He left everything to his wife and not his own daughter, this Emma, Betchins. They say that Kate cheated on him even in marriage. Bless you. Van winced. "Mom, you know that I try not to listen to gossip." Mary waved her hand and turned to the girl to satisfy her Emma experience. Where have you been? She sat here under our fence the whole time. Why didn't you go straight to the station? Emma replied. I went to the churchyard. You may not believe it, but I really feel sorry for Dad. I never knew another father. It was he who wiped my tears. When I got bad grades at school, he gave me my first bouquet of flowers and carried me on his shoulders. I even braided my hair when my mother had no time. It's not easy to immediately lose such family relationships. I sat on the grave and didn't even notice how much time I spent there. Her heart trembled, but she asked, why did you stop at our house where I could sit down? I stopped there. I'm sorry I bothered you. Now the phone will charge a little and I will leave. Bernard smiled. And where are you going to go at night? A young and beautiful girl is hardly worth taking risks. Mom, let's make Emma sleep on the sofa in the summer kitchen. It's warm now and she won't freeze. I can take her tomorrow morning. Mary was indignant. That is, you don't have time to go to your aunt and pick up the transmitter, and how to go for a ride with a girl. So for the sweet soul, although by the way, it's not dark yet, you can pick berries, peas, and strawberries today and radishes and onions tomorrow morning. It will be fresher. You will take everything to your aunt. Let him sell it. Now the first greens, the berries are expensive. The woman turned her gaze to Emma and demand. In general, while your phone is charging, let's go. Will you help me? I need to rest before I go on the road tomorrow morning. Although picking small berries was not the most common thing for Emma, she coped with the task quite quickly. Slowly but surely, the cups were filled with ripe berries. As Mary ordered, Emma did not fill them to the top and put them in a box with cells. When the two bushes were freed from their burden, Mary called to the girl, "Come." When Emma approached, the woman outlined a new area of work for her. Here, look, the pea blades are neat and not all in a row. Oh, and I also need to give you a bed. Emma nodded. She herself wanted to at least somehow thank the people who decided to shelter her. The girl did not feel the strength to go somewhere right now. It was necessary to have at least a short respite after the earlier harvest had been harvested. Mary invited both her son and her guests to the table. Only at that moment, when the girl smelled potatoes stewed with meat, did she realize that all day she had been refreshed only by pastries and soda at the station. Trying not to look hungry, Emma started eating. However, she was prevented from completely relaxing by the attentive, searching glances that Ted threw at her. The man really liked the girl. Slender, modest, it was clear that she did not have a nasty Caroline sides. Went with his mother to the garden without any problems. And she didn't even express her dissatisfaction with a gesture. And this despite the fact that it was obvious. The girl was clearly a city girl, unaccustomed to fresh air. There he sits as if after tea, almost asleep. But the conversation that her mother has with her, asking about her life, supports her. Ted didn't listen much to the dialogue. But he even felt sorry for the guest who ended up being interrogated instead of dinner, and he decided to end the torment of the unfortunate woman. Mom, we are leaving early tomorrow. The guest has already made her bed linen. Otherwise, he simply won't be able to wake up on time tomorrow. Emma, who was really very tired both physically and mentally, looked at the man with gratitude. And Ted realized that he wanted the girl to always look at him like that. He liked her more and more every minute. In the morning, Ted drove Emma to the district center, and getting ready to park near his aunt's house, asked the girl, "Nee, listen, did you head further to your native land or what?" The girl shrugged. "Don't know. Still need to think. My way home is blocked. I'll probably look for a place in some children's institution. Of course, I don't have a diploma yet, but I do have my record book with me. Maybe someone would take pity on the student. I need a vacancy with accommodation." He would slap his forehead and say, "Listen, how come I didn't think of it right away? Now let's go to my aunt's together. Maybe she will need an assistant for the summer season. She lives in the apartment alone." So Emma ended up in a small town 100 kilometers from her hometown with Aunt Ellen. The apartment was decorated in a minimalist style, and the girl did not feel very comfortable in it. After a short introduction, the hostess asked Emma to sit in the kitchen, and she and her nephew went into the back room and asked, "Well, why did you bring this girl here for me? By the way, I have a decent apartment. Your mother already called me and warned me that you might not come alone. And with this one, which our Andrew raised for so many years as his own." The nephew was spared the need to tell the woman the situation. "That's it. You won't be alone." And grimaced, "No, Ted. I don't understand who I can't trust. After all, trade is such a thing. Moreover, this girl's mother and I have our own scores to settle. You were very little when Andrew brought this FIFA to the village to show, although before that he wanted to marry me, by the way. How can I live in the same apartment with the daughter of this impudent woman? This Emma has a rotten family. So nephew, I'm sorry, I tried to convince his aunt, but it seems children are not responsible for the sins of their fathers. More precisely, in this case, mothers are not responsible. Emma looks quite adequate, so I think you won't regret it. Don't even try to persuade me. Do you want to help this girl? Give him money to go home and let him settle down somewhere in his big city. There are also higher salaries. And the hostess and her nephew entered the kitchen, and Helen said bluntly, I'm sorry, but I have my own personal life, and your presence would be out of place. And I don't need helpers. As they say, I can handle everything myself. However, Ted did not want to part with the beautiful Emma, and he feverishly thought about how to get her phone number. Much to the man's surprise, the girl was not upset at all, but was even happy. It's very good that it's not necessary. I was looking through advertisements on my phone for a special boarding house, which somewhere, judging by the map here in the area, a cleaner is needed. It's not a very prestigious profession, of course, but I won't give up. In addition, accommodation and meals are provided, just a fabulous offer. The only negative is that, as the smartphone suggested, there is no public transport to this boarding house, so I had to order a taxi. In general, a wild number appeared on the screen. I just ask you to lend me some money to get there. As soon as I receive my first salary, I will transfer it to you immediately. No. What if you suddenly come there, look, and don't like it? Let me take it to you. I'll wait to make sure everything is fine, and only then will I leave. Helen, who involuntarily heard this dialogue taking place in her kitchen, was not too surprised by her nephew. Ted has always been very empathetic, from early childhood. I remember that at the age of 6, he brought a girl from a neighboring street to his home and said that this was his fiancée who would live with him. He also had several girls at school. At least 3 girls cried for him, but he grew old and, after serving, returned to the village with his bride. She, however, could not live like this for long under the yoke of the Midge and left for her homeland without waiting for the wedding march. As far as Helen knew, Ted was not at all upset about the failed marriage. It seems that he even breathed a sigh of relief and continued to lead a completely unmonastic lifestyle. And now the woman noticed a familiar spark of excitement in her nephew's eyes. The hunter has already had his eye on his next victim. Perhaps this poor fellow should have been warned, but Helen chose not to interfere. First of all, Emma was clearly of age, based on what the woman knew. Secondly, she has her own scores to settle with this person's mother. Thirdly, Helen knew her nephew. If he wants to get a girl, then he will get her. So let them do whatever they want, just don't touch her. Ted gallantly opened the car door for Emma, and Helen, watching the couple from the window, realized that the naive-looking young lady would have practically no chance to resist. The woman's instincts and experience did not disappoint. It had really managed to win Emma over, although, of course, he had to try. Basically, the thoughts of the girl, who was hired for seasonal work in a boarding house, were occupied with the problem of housing. Emma called her mother to find out how she was going to solve the pressing housing issue, but Kate asked to give her more time. Almost every time she answered the same thing. No. Daughter, it's not that simple. We only have a 2-room apartment in a residential area of the city and not a mansion on the main street. If you arrange an exchange for 2 apartments, then nothing good will come of it. Mom, why did you decide to change our apartment? Think about the fact that this is your marriage home. If you decide to exchange it and then buy another apartment, then your hubby will be able to claim part of it if something happens. It seems to me that the easiest way is to move George into the apartment that his father rents out. From the silence that hung on the phone for a few seconds, Emma guessed that there was some problem that she didn't know about and asked directly, Mother, just answer me honestly, what's wrong with your Freddie's apartment? Does he even have one? Or has he been lying to you all these years? Parker sighed and admitted. Freddie had an apartment, but he had to urgently sell it in order to save George from prison. It turned out that Helga threw him out of her home and life for a reason. Freddie didn't tell me everything in detail, but the story could not have ended well for George. It's good that the injured party agreed not to contact the police, and the matter was settled peacefully. In general, this is the situation, daughter. Emma constantly tried to convey to her mother the idea that a person who had to buy freedom at the price of an apartment could be dangerous. Mom, do you understand that you are putting yourself and Anne in danger? Obviously, this George didn't pick flowers from a flower bed or took change from other people's pockets. It turns out he committed a rather serious crime. And Daddy, work hard. Instead of allowing his son to go where he belonged, he sold the apartment and paid off fair retribution. Well, okay, Freddie is not afraid of his offspring, but why do you allow George to be with you, Anne, under the same roof? Let him work, rent an apartment for himself, preferably further away. Emma was not so much tired from the work, which, to be honest, was a lot, but from the constant persuasion. She couldn't convince her mother to change her mind and push her to block George's access to the apartment. The only outlet for the girl was communication with Dima. The man came to see her every weekend, and sometimes on weekdays. During meetings, he showered me with compliments and brought various sweets and natural village products. The fewer days remained until the end of the last shift, the more worried Emma became. Without even knowing what to say, the decisive factor was one of the conversations with Dima, who, hugging her tightly, whispered in her ear, "Oh, Emma, my Emma, she just bewitched me. How will I live without you? I don't even know. Let's transfer to correspondence and move in with me. I will be lost without you. I will wither away. I understand that you are all so lofty and Emma was silent, but she liked the idea of moving. She herself felt that Emma had fallen into this man who cared so much about her. Besides, if she accepts the invitation, she won't have to return to her mother's apartment and look at the disgusting faces of Freddie and his offspring. Of course, it will take longer to study in absentia, but it will be possible to live with Emma's loved one, even without formalizing the relationship. While the girl was thinking, Ted whispered, "Don't think so. I'm not just suggesting you come and live. I understand that this is probably important to you. Just a little before the wedding happens, you will come to me. That's all." Emma looked Ted in the eye to make sure he was serious. As if sensing a shadow of doubt, confirmed, "Yes, I propose to you to get married. You usually have to wait a month from the moment you submit your application until it is signed. But this means practically nothing. You will live as a wife." From the very first day Emma crossed the threshold of the house, she was spinning in a whirlpool of happy worries. The mother did not feel joy that her son brought Emma home as a bride, hearing laughter from Ted's room. Lemon frowned with disgust and quietly whispered, "They are having fun. If only they were ashamed of me." They decided to have the wedding on seemingly neutral territory, near which Emma spent the summer. The bride, who already knew that she had become pregnant by Emma Ted, did not want a large celebration and was glad that her future mother-in-law supported her. "Oh, but now it's no longer fashionable to gather the whole village." "Yes, and that's correct. The money that would be wasted on food and drink would be better spent on something useful. The car needs to be replaced, the roof needs to be patched, and you should buy a bed that's not so squeaky." Mary couldn't resist mocking. As a result, Emma invited only her mother and Anne to sit in a modest cafe. Under no circumstances did she want to see Freddie and George at the table on a holiday. From the groom's side, only his mother came. Aunt Helen flatly refused to participate in the celebration. Both Ted, privy to the long history with Andrew, and the bride's mother understood why. Anne sat on her lap for almost the entire lunch. When, after modest gatherings, the bride's relatives and the newlyweds and their mother had to go in different directions, the girl even cried. Emma also began to cry. In general, she had difficulty controlling her emotions and nerves. After a month of living there, the restless Mary's nerves were stretched to the limit. The woman literally did not allow me to lie down and rest. All she had for Emma was to work in the garden and greenhouse, roll up jars with the harvest, cook and clean the house. Everything had to be done by the bride. He, of course, helped as much as possible. But Mary, noticing, for example, her son peeling onions for preparation, almost cursed him out of the kitchen. "What did you come up with? Do women's work, go out and do men's?" If life was not sweet for the unfortunate young woman in her mother's apartment, then here in general, she sometimes wanted to howl like a wolf. Mary stole almost everything. When Emma spoke about her pregnancy and that it was difficult for her to tolerate certain smells due to toxicosis, her mother-in-law went completely wild. Left alone with her daughter-in-law, Mary began to raise the young woman, going, "Don't pretend in front of me. Why wasn't I pregnant? You know, they used to give birth in the field and nothing happened. They were all strong." Emma didn't have the strength to argue or prove anything. She almost constantly wanted to sleep. From a cheerful and active beauty, she turned into an amorphous creature with bags under her eyes. Emma understood that the pregnancy was not proceeding at all the way her mother went with Anne, and she was scared. She once complained to Ted, Irene from your paramedic midwife center told me that swelling is a variant of the norm. When I began to say that on the internet, it was advised to conduct an additional examination for such symptoms. She openly cursed me. I'm afraid Irene is being too careless about what I tell her. My symptoms are not the best. Take me to the antenatal clinic, at least in the nearest city. Hearing this, Mary could not stand it. Yes, our Irene has as much experience as you are. Since she said that you have a normal variant, that means it is so. That's right, she sent you. The simulator, the lady spoke on our head. If you don't trust Irene, go. The bus runs twice a day. You'll leave in the morning, come back in the evening, and Ted won't have to travel around, and the budget will remain the same. You didn't bring a penny into the house, but you're still trying to ride into heaven on our backs. Having shown concern in this way, the future grandmother went to one of her friends, and Emma, left alone with her husband, began to persuade. Ted, please, let's take me to the regional center. I feel that no amount of dill can help my condition. Why take the risk? The man could, but the woman somewhere on the cheek and promised, okay, I'll think of something. However, in the morning, when Emma woke up, her husband was no longer there. The woman got dressed and looked out into the car yard. The husband was also not there, and Mary Vasilievna was busy in the front garden. Me. Good morning, greeted Emma's mother-in-law. Do you happen to know when Ted will be back? Else, without looking up from what she was doing, Mary answers. By the evening, Helen will probably have some kind of incident at work. And he rushed there to help. It became so offensive that tears flowed from my eyes. Why didn't her husband wake her up? Although he knew that she needed to go to the regional center, she would get ready in an instant. More precisely, she had everything already prepared for attending the consultation. Having filled a bottle of water, Emma took her bag and, trying to calm down, headed to the gate. Are you going far? I need to collect carrots. Otherwise, according to the forecast, there will be a ton of rain next week. The mother-in-law's voice came from behind the woman. When you sit down at the table, you are in the first row, and how to help, you run from the yard. Emma turned around and, not holding back her tears, answered, I need to go to the hospital, where Ted, by the way, could very well have dropped me off. Or did you specifically dissuade him from leaving alone? And I was fiddling with carrots. Very thoughtful of you. Mary was angry. Oh, that's how you spoke. Here you have warmed up the snake, you impudent freeloader. Emma did not listen to what other insults her mother-in-law would come up with and headed to the bus stop so as not to miss the bus. The woman managed to get a paid appointment with a doctor only around lunchtime. As Emma assumed, additional tests were ordered, which they also could not take from her for free. However, the fairly young doctor conducting the appointment advised me, of course, I have no right to force you to urgently run and get tested at a paid center. However, when I was in your place, that's exactly what I did. Now I have a 5-year-old son thanks to the timely diagnosis of the problem and correctly prescribed treatment. It's scary to think what would have happened if everything had been different. Emma thanked the doctor and, leaving the consultation building, called her husband. Ted, I'm in the center now. Please, I'm coming. I may not have enough money because I still need to take paid tests. The doctor wasn't particularly frightening, but it seems there's no point in delaying it since I'm already here. That man did not consider it necessary to apologize for leaving in the morning without his wife, and was even indignant. Do you know where I can get this money? Am I printing them, do you think? Emma, hearing women's laughter and squeals in the background, as if someone was tickling someone, was so surprised that she even ignored her husband's rudeness. Ted, your mom said that you went to help your aunt, and you were having fun somewhere. How do we understand this in general? However, instead of an answer, beeps were heard from the phone. Upon further attempts to call Ted, the woman heard that the subscriber was unavailable. In the paid laboratory, a charming girl filling out documents asked if Emma had eaten, made a discount, and after drawing blood, she even poured hot tea and offered cookies. Emma, embarrassed, asked how much tea and cookies would cost, and the girl laughed merrily. What are you talking about? Everything is free. There are vases of more candy. True, they are tiny but very tasty. Take it, don't be shy. Emma modestly took a few things, and having learned that the next day the results would already be sent to the specified email, thanked Emma's girl, who showed much more concern for her than her mother-in-law and husband. As soon as the woman came out into the air, Ted calls, "No, tell me where to go." "I am free." Emma gave the address, and soon she was driving with her husband towards his village. The tired woman did not want to cause a scandal, and as a gesture of goodwill, she offered him some candy. "Try me now in the laboratory," the girl from the reception treated me. The man, who was expecting a showdown, realized that the threat of a quarrel had passed and ate the sweet with pleasure. But Mary, as soon as Ted and Emma crossed the threshold of the house, began to throw thunder and lightning. Son, this is just a disgrace. Okay, you left to help Helen. It's a holy thing to never abandon a relative in trouble, but after you, this one also drove off to an unknown destination." Emma indignantly tried to defend herself. "Actually, I told you and Ted that I was going to the regional hospital. By the way, I care about your grandson's health. The doctor said that tests need to be done and that swelling like mine is not normal." And the elderly woman chuckled. "These doctors just want to extract more money from simpletons. And in general, it is still unknown whose child you are carrying. I probably slept with half the boarding house staff. And you want to send it to Ted. Do you think your mother pulled off such a trick? And everything will go smoothly for you. Ted, get her out of my sight and immediately. Since you found her under the fence, let her go there. That's the place for your woman to walk. You will still find a good woman. And the sooner you remove this from your life, the better. Look, Andrew got confused with her mother. So what's the result? He lies quietly in the graveyard while Jane sheds tears. She is too soft and was unable to immediately return her son to her side. So I was left alone without support in my old age. I don't wish such a fate for you or myself." Emma's eyes darkened at such words from her mother-in-law, trying not to faint to the delight of her mother-in-law's gloating. The woman, slowly, leaning on the wall, began to move towards the bedroom. There were no tears, just pure fear caused by an unusual sensation. Her stomach was twisting somehow strangely, but Emma, with her feminine instinct, understood that it was not from hunger. Carefully, trying not to make sudden movements, she began to fold her. A few minutes later, Ted came into the room and began to persuade. "Emma, why are you freaking out? Just think, Mom got excited." She doesn't really think so. Mom herself is now sitting in the kitchen, worried, drinking drops from her heart. Emma raised her head and looked at her husband. "That's it, Ted. I've had enough of this family life. You know, when I had to run away from my home, I firmly promised myself that I would never tolerate insults. But for some reason, until today, I have repeatedly broken my vow. But that's not even the worst thing. I am terribly offended that you can never say a word in my defense. I should not have believed that I could become happy." As soon as Emma said these words, another painful spasm ran through her. In a dull voice, the woman ordered to get dressed. "I feel bad, take me to the hospital." Mary, who, as it turned out, was not sitting in the kitchen but was eavesdropping on the couple's conversation, butted at me. "Why are you pushing my son around? He has just arrived and must take you somewhere again. I won't let you in. By God, I won't let you in." Emma, realizing that arguing with her mother-in-law could be fatal, was already dialing the emergency number to call an ambulance. The 45 minutes while the doctors were driving became the longest in the woman's life. Sometimes the pain would go away for a while, and then she would continue to pack her things. When my insides again curled into a tight spring, I moved to a computer chair, leaned back and tried, despite the desire to curl up sideways, to completely relax and breathe calmly and measuredly. Ted defied his mother and volunteered to accompany his wife to the hospital. Mary only managed to insist that her son ride not in his own car, but in an ambulance, waking up after anesthesia. Emma felt terrible thirst and dizziness. Vision gradually became clearer, but the woman, looking around her life, saw empty beds in the corners like gray shadows. Emma blinked hard and, opening her eyes, noted with satisfaction they had disappeared. Gradually, the sounds returned. The woman heard someone walking along the corridor. Somewhere nearby, an elevator was making noise. Considering all sorts of devices that came into view, the specific smell of medicines and detergents, Emma concluded that the assumption turned out to be correct. Soon, a woman in a medical uniform entered, softened her lips with wet cotton wool, and greedy. "Welcome back. How are you feeling?" "Nothing. I'm just very dizzy," Emma answered hoarsely. "But it's normal. Narcosis is the thing. What is your name? Do you remember?" "Emma." "Wonderful name. Well, let's watch you here a little longer and then go to the room. You will have to stay under the supervision of a doctor for several days, and then home." "Excuse me, please, but what about my child?" Emma asked the most important question, but received a very evasive answer. "I'm just an anesthesiologist." The doctor will tell you everything in detail, don't worry." Emma nodded, causing everything to blur before her eyes, and it was as if she had fallen into a viscous, unnatural dream. After waking up again, she felt much better, although perhaps I wanted to drink even more. Before the woman had time to press the call button, a nurse came for her with a gurney. "Well, my dear, let's slowly come here like this, sideways, carefully. Now I'll take you to the ward." Emma was worried about the child. As soon as the doctor approached her and began asking questions about her well-being, the woman quietly asked, "How is my child?" Everything became clear from Emma's downcast eyes, as through the thickness of the water some terms reached her that she did not understand. At the end of the explanation, the doctor spoke words of consolation. "Operation was successfully completed. You will certainly be able to become a mother after the recovery period, of course. Everyone, rest. In the evening, be sure to come to the treatment room for an injection." The doctor left, and overcoming the urge to scream, Emma noticed her bag. Reaching out her hand, the woman took out the phone and dialed her husband's number. "Ted, listen to me and don't worry. Collect all my things and bring them to me at the hospital when I am discharged. I will inform you about the date and time later. Let's stop by, file for divorce, and you can be completely free." The man tried to say something, but Emma did not listen to him. The woman now considered escaping from her home, transferring to correspondence education, and insulting her mother-in-law to be completely insignificant events compared to loss of a child. Now Emma has decided to return to the apartment where Freddie and his son have settled and kicked them out. Whether mom likes it or not, they didn't want it in a good way, so we'll be in a right way. We still need to find out what crime George committed in order to expose this bastard. But this is after my head stopped spinning so hellishly. Instead of a few days in the hospital, she had to stay for a week, but Emma had time to think about everything. She rejected calls from her mother-in-law without accepting them. And when Mary tried to talk to her daughter-in-law from her son's phone, she cut off her lamentations. "You know what? Go under the fence yourself. And don't call me anymore." He did everything Emma asked, and didn't even try to talk her out of divorce. Only when he dropped the woman off near the station, he asked, "Emma, don't be angry with me and Mom. She didn't want this to happen. This is all a fatal accident." The woman didn't answer and didn't even slam the car door, although she really wanted to. Emma did not warn her mother about her return. And upon entering, I was surprised that there was no one in the apartment. On the one hand, this was very pleasing, but on the other, it was already almost 11 p.m., and Anne definitely had to be at home with someone. There was relative order in the bedroom that Emma shared with her younger sister, considering that there is a little girl living there. But in the other rooms, the woman noticed traces that looked like hasty preparations. Emma headed to the kitchen and automatically looked into the refrigerator. I was amazed that it was almost empty, so I put the kettle on. And then Mom and Anne entered the apartment. "Oh, daughter." Kate was delighted. "I'm so glad to see you," and grabbed her older sister by the legs and began to persuade her. "Don't leave anymore." Emma crouched down to hug the girl and began to calm her down. "Everything is fine. I won't go anywhere else." Later, when Emma read a book to her sister and the girl fell asleep, Kate apologized to her daughter. "May forgive me for everything. I'm sorry, you turned out to be right." Freddie and George got into bad business. Now they are in prison. An old crime committed by George was also revealed. The two women sat in the kitchen for a long time, shedding tears into their tea. And then Emma suggested, "Mom, let's sell this apartment and move somewhere far away. There are too many unpleasant memories here." Kate agreed. Soon, the mother and two daughters settled in a city 300 kilometers from their homeland. Emma transferred to a local university. I also met a nice single neighbor at the entrance. She no longer believed in the lightning-fast Emma and agreed to marry Pablo only a few years later. Kate, who, having married Freddie, ruined the lives of many close people, completely devoted herself to caring for Milana and the twins born to Emma and her husband. The passenger train slowed down. Bridges, houses, traffic lights flashed in the compartment window. Looking into the compartment, the conductress said, "Approaching, parking 2 minutes." The man put his things in a bag and left the compartment. Passengers with suitcases and travel bags were crowding in the aisle, preparing to leave. "Do you know where you can find a hotel in this city?" the elegantly dressed man asked the conductress. "I don't know," she replied. "Ask the cab drivers, they know." Thank you. Have a good trip, and all the best to you." The man got down on the platform and looked around. Night had already fallen on the city. The station building was faintly lit by lanterns. He passed by, turned the corner, but did not see Kate with checkers on the roof. At a loss, the man stopped under the taxi stand sign. He had come to this unfamiliar city on very important business. Now he didn't know how long he would be here, but he was determined, planning to finish everything quickly so that his life's dream would finally come true. The man noticed a car, which, shining its headlights on the wet asphalt, was moving in his direction. He waved his hand and the car stopped. "I'd like to find a hotel to spend the night," the stranger said to the driver, who noticed the strange accent with which the man spoke. Was he not from around here? "Get in. I'll give you a ride," the driver offered. "You won't get there on foot. It's too far." The man sat down on the back seat and thanked the driver. "But I don't give rides for free," he warned. Yes, I have money, don't worry." The passenger put his hand into his coat pocket and took out a colored bill. He handed it to the bomber. "And there is no Russian money?" the driver asked the passenger. "Unfortunately, no, I have just arrived, but if there is somewhere you can exchange it, I would be very happy. I only have euros with me, and I need rubles." The driver looked at the passenger carefully through the rearview mirror. Odd, even a little ridiculous, unsure, he had taken out a packet of euros and was now showing it to him, a stranger he was seeing for the first time in his life. Crazy or just plain stupid? Usually business travelers would kill themselves for the last penny and even ask cab drivers for a check to account for the trip, but this. "I know where there is an exchange office nearby. Let's go," said the driver, and the car rustled its wheels on the asphalt. After a while, the driver slowed down and, without turning off the engine, said, "Over there on the corner, you see it's lit up. They change currency there. Go. I'll wait here." The passenger got out of the car, leaving his travel bag on the back seat, and headed in the direction indicated. The man did not hear the driver quietly got out after him, and, trying not to stomp, followed the dark shadow on his heels. Not reaching a few meters to the exchange, the stranger stumbled, the laces on his boots untied. He bent down to tidy his shoes. Suddenly something heavy fell on his head. From the impact, a severe pain spread all over his head, and then came the darkness. The new day began with rain. A nasty fall drizzle sowing on the ground like a sieve. Its drops dripped down the window, making me feel sad. This fall it rained especially often. It was as if nature was tired of the summer heat and drought, and now it was trying its best to recharge itself with life-giving moisture. Megan stared out the window, gazing out through the streams of rain running down the glass. Sam had just fallen asleep. The 5-year-old girl wrapped a piece of bread in a clean handkerchief, dipped it in the sweet tea, and brought it to the lips of the 6-month-old. "Here, suck the bread," she said to her brother in a quiet voice. "There is nothing else. Here, Mom will come and feed you." The child grabbed the roll with his mouth and began to suck zealously. The girl stroked his head. Gradually, the baby calmed down and fell asleep. Why hadn't she thought of giving him some bread soaked in tea before? She could have slept herself if he had calmed down and not cried all night. Megan looked out the window, standing on a stool. Her mother had left as early as yesterday. She still wasn't home. Aunt Kate from next door showed up in the yard. The woman put the doormats on the bench and began to dust them, taking one by one and putting the clean ones in a neat pile. The girl watched Aunt Kate. The kind neighbor sometimes fed Megan, bringing her from the yard to her house. When her mother gave birth to Sam, the girl stayed with the kind woman for a few days. Those were such happy days. Aunt Kate's house was always clean and warm. On the table was a vase with cookies and candy, and for dinner the neighbor cooked delicious meat cutlets with pasta. Aunt Kate also bought Megan pencils and a sketchbook, and in the evenings they drew together. The girl every time tried to depict on a sheet of paper her father, mother, and herself next to her brother. It didn't always work. That daddy was sad, that mom was ugly, and still she liked to visit her neighbor. At the end of the yard, Mom showed up. Megan rejoiced, pressed her face against the window pane. Her mother walked staggeringly, struggling to move her legs. Her hair was disheveled and her cloak was stained, as if she'd rolled in mud. "Chiara, you're drunk again." Aunt Kate shouted at her. "Shame on you." After all, a young mother, 2 children, began to shame the drunken woman neighbor. "Leave me alone, you don't get to judge me," Megan's mother snapped at her and strode unsteadily toward her driveway. "Oh no," the neighbor rushed over to her. "You're going to listen to me today, you asshole. Sam's been screaming all night. A 6-month-old baby in the arms of a 5-year-old girl for 24 hours. What are you trying to do? Kill the kids?" "Fuck off. It's none of your business." "Maybe it's none of my business, but I'll call the police and the guardianship office, so you'll know when the kids are taken away. Maybe then you'll get your head on straight and start thinking." "What?" screamed the drunken woman. "And you try to call, I'll burn your apartment with all your stuff." Oh, you scared me. Don't sleep in a drunken frenzy." The neighbor came close to the woman, shook her by the shoulders. "Grace, look what you look like. Look what you've turned into. You used to be a beautiful woman, smart, hard-working, and now you're just a slut and an alcoholic. There's no other way to call her." "Piss off," I said. The woman pushed her neighbor away and entered the entrance of a 2-story wooden barrack. Sighing, Megan got off the stool and walked down the hallway. Now her mother would fall into the house, fall to the floor, and have to drag her to bed, or she'd be lying in the hallway, unable to get up. Just as long as she didn't wake Sam, she thought. For as long as Megan could remember, her mother had always been caring and loving. She worked as a nurse at the hospital. From work, she would run to the daycare center to pick up her daughter, and then they would rush home together. Mom would cook dinner and Megan would twirl around her in the kitchen with her dolls. When Dad came home from work, Mom would set dinner on the table. Dad always joked a lot. He was a very kind man, and he loved Mom and Megan. Most of all, the girl loved it when he rolled her on his shoulders. And they also went to the yard together and Daddy would swing her on the swings. Then one day Megan heard some noise in the big room and came running to see what was going on. Her dad was twirling her mom around the room in his arms and kissing all the while. "Put it down." "I'm getting dizzy already," she asked, laughing. Dad put Mom on the couch and squatted down and stroked her belly. "Megan, you're going to have a baby brother soon," the man said, seeing that the daughter was looking at her and her mother with surprise. The girl sat down next to Grace. "Is he in your belly?" she asked her mother, but she did not answer, only smiled. "He's in my belly," my dear Daddy said. "Soon he will appear, and you will play with him, ride him in a stroller in the yard, feed him from a spoon." "No way." Megan pouted her lips. "I like to draw, but how could he?" "He can't until he's little. And then you'll teach him," said her father. After a while, Grace's belly began to bulge, growing bigger and bigger and bigger, turning into a huge ball. One day, the father found his daughter crying bitterly in her room. "Megan, honey, what's wrong? Did someone hurt you?" he worried. Daddy took the girl's face in his palms and looked carefully into her eyes. "Tell me who hurt you, and I will punish him." "My brother," the girl cried, sobbing. "What brother?" The father did not understand. "The one in Mommy's belly," Megan persisted. "How could he hurt you? He wasn't born yet." The man stroked his daughter's hair, trying to calm her down. "Let him not be born." Megan smeared tears on her cheeks with her fists. "Why not? What are you talking about? Don't you want a brother?" "No, I don't. Look how big Mommy's belly is. It'll burst like a balloon and she'll die," Megan sobbed again. Her father looked surprised at her crying daughter, but then he laughed and hugged her. "Silly girl, nothing will happen to your mom," he said. "You, too, lived in her tummy at first. Mommy gave birth to you and now we are all together." The girl looked at her daddy incredulously. "Is she sure she won't die when the baby brother is born?" she asked. "Of course she won't die, little girl. Don't even worry." A month later, together with Daddy, they took Mommy and baby brother from the hospital. It was a very happy and joyful day. The day before, Daddy vacuumed the carpets and dusted the house, and Megan followed him like a tail. "Are you going to swing him on the swing too?" asked her father. "And on your shoulders you will roll? Will you throw him up to the ceiling and catch him?" "Megan, he is still very young, and at first he will always only sleep and drink milk. And play." Megan didn't understand. "When he grows up, then he will play. Don't rush the time, baby." Mom came out of the hospital with a blue package. The father ran up to her, took the baby in his arms, and handed the mother a bouquet of flowers. He lifted the corner of the blanket and showed Megan the baby brother. "How ugly," exclaimed the girl. "Is he going to be so red and wrinkled for the rest of his life?" The parents laughed. At home, everything revolved around the little brother. In the morning, her father took Megan to kindergarten, and in the evening, when he brought her home, the first thing she did was to run to the crib where Sam was sleeping. She would take his hand, run her little fingers over it, stroke his tummy. Her mom wouldn't let her hold her brother in her arms, but she gave Megan a bottle of formula, and the girl fed the baby, saying, "Eat every last drop, then you will grow big and strong." One day, Daddy didn't come to pick up Megan at the kindergarten. All the children had already been taken away, and she was playing alone on the playground, all the time looking toward the gate. But there was no sign of her father. When it was already dark, the teacher took the girl home. The door was opened by a neighbor, Aunt Kate. Megan ran into the apartment, rushed as usual to the crib where Sam lay. The women in the hallway talked quietly about something and the caregiver left, and then Mom came back. Her face was tearful. She collapsed helplessly on the couch and sobbed. Aunt Kate stroked the woman's hair and shoulders, soothing her, saying, "What a grief, Lord. How can you be alone now with 2 orphans?" Megan's dad died in the service. He was a fireman. That day, a vegetable warehouse caught fire. It was dry and windy in May, and the flames spread quickly through the building, covering the walls and roof. One of the floor joists collapsed, crushing the man, and when he was pulled outside, he was already dead. When Megan's mother was informed of the terrible tragedy that happened to her husband, she completely lost her mind, thrashing around like a madwoman, screaming and sobbing. The EMTs had to try their best to give her some shots to calm her down. On the day of her father's funeral, a neighbor's Aunt Kate was at home with Megan and Sam. While the baby slept, she set the plates on the table. "Bring glasses," baby Aunt Kate asked the girl, "or people will come, and we haven't set the table yet." "Why are people coming?" Megan asked naively. "It's customary. When a person goes to the next world, they bury him, and then remember him." The woman tried to explain. "What do you mean, memorialized?" The girl persisted, putting the glasses on the table. "It means that they eat, drink Kiesel, and remember the deceased with a kind word. And we in the kindergarten, too, they give us Kiesel. Are we remembering someone, too?" Aunt Kate looked sadly at the girl. Megan, who was bright beyond her years, waited for her answer. The woman hugged the little girl to her and secretly brushed away a tear that rolled down her cheek. "My poor girl, life is complicated, and it's hard for me to explain everything to you. Just remember that Papa loved you very much, and will always and always watch from the cloud how you live. And he will also watch how friendly and smart you and your baby brother are growing up. So you never leave Sam." Megan didn't understand anything the neighbor said, but she decided she would help her mom with everything, so that her dad would see it on his cloud and praise her daughter. Megan's mother, Chiara, was taking the death of her husband very hard. She strongly loved him since the school bench, believed that fate long ago decided everything for them and united them into one whole. When her husband was gone, he began to drink. At first, she drank in the evenings after putting the children to bed. She sat in the kitchen with a bottle of vodka and a shot glass, drank and cried, remembering such a short, full of happiness and love family life. And then some people began to appear in the house. They and Grace drank together, yelled, sometimes fought. When her mother didn't pick Megan up from kindergarten, the teacher brought the girl home and said, "Run and I'll wait for you to come inside." Often the door to the apartment was locked from the inside. Megan would spend hours pounding her fists on the plywood paneling and screaming, "Mom, open up, it's me." Megan, her mother, was either asleep, drunk on vodka, or partying in the kitchen with her friends. Once home, Megan would sit next to Sam's crib and talk to him. "You don't have to be afraid," she told her brother, who looked at the girl with blue eyes. "Our mom is just a little sick. You'll see she'll get better, and everything will be like before." Megan learned to make her own formula, and when she wasn't, she heated a bottle of store-bought milk in a pot of hot water. Days, weeks, months went by, and Ciara never stopped drinking. On the contrary, the woman now began to disappear from the house for days at a time. She would return drunk and out of her mind, and most often, as soon as she walked through the door, she would collapse on the floor and lie there until she came to her senses. One morning, Megan walked into the kitchen. Her mother was washing dishes. It seemed to the girl that it had become the same, There were no bottles and shot glasses anywhere. The kitchen table was clean and even the gingerbread was in a plate. "Mommy, we need to feed Sam," said the girl. "Now, my good girl, I'll heat up the milk and give it to my brother." Her mother poured milk from the bag into a clean bottle and set it to heat up on the water bath. "Do you want some tea, daughter?" "Pour, please." The girl sat down on a stool by the table and took a gingerbread. She thought only about one thing: if only no one had come to visit her mother and brought vodka. Finally, everyone was fed. Ciara started to get dressed. "Are you leaving, Mommy?" Megan asked fearfully. She knew Mommy would leave and then come back with a bottle and she would be lying around drunk again. "No, honey, we're all going to go for a walk to the park together," the woman replied. "Get dressed and put a blanket in the stroller." Rejoicing, Megan started pulling clothes out of the closet, got dressed, and then rolled the stroller into the middle of the room to prepare a place for her baby brother. She didn't notice her mother lurking in the kitchen, pouring alcohol into a glass and knocking it over, wrinkling her nose a little. The woman stared out the window for a few minutes and then did it again, splashing more vodka into the glass. Grace went back into the room to the children. Megan was already dressed, and Sam was lying in his crib. His mother moved him to the couch and dressed him in a beautiful knit suit with an embroidered bunny on the chest. Then the woman went to the sideboard and took something out of a crystal candy bowl. Here she held it out to her daughter, put it on and never take it off. Megan was holding a braided string with a small wooden horseshoe hanging from it. She obediently put the thing around her neck, but still asked, "What is this, Mother?" In her mother's hands, she saw exactly the same pendant on a braided cord. She was running her finger along the wooden horseshoe, whispering something quietly, as if she were talking to someone. The girl tugged Grace's skirt. "Mommy, what is this? Why do I have to wear this shoelace?" The woman squatted down in front of her daughter, looked her in the eyes with her alcohol-fogged gaze, and spoke. "These two identical pendants your daddy made a long time ago when he and I started dating. He had one and I had the other. And now I want you and Sam to have them, okay?" Megan nodded, though she didn't understand anything. "But since Mommy said so, let that horseshoe lanyard hang around her neck. Especially since Daddy made it." Grace put the second pendant around her son's neck and hid it under her knit sweater. It was warm and dry outside. Ciara rolled the stroller in front of her, and Megan walked beside her. Sometimes she skidded forward, bouncing, spinning. The girl couldn't remember a time when she and her mom had walked together. "Wait here," her mother said, "and put the stroller next to the entrance to the store. I'll be right back." When the mother came out, she had a bag with a bottle and a Plomber ice cream in her hands, which the woman handed to her daughter. They took another walk in the park. Ciara bought a ticket for the merry-go-round. Megan waved cheerfully to her mother as she sat on the horse, and the mother walked beside her, rolling a stroller with a sleeping Sam in front of her. Then her mother sat Megan on a bench, put the stroller next to her, and gave her a handful of candy. "Stay here and don't go anywhere," the mother told her daughter. "If she wakes up, there's a bottle of milk in the stroller pocket. Do you understand me?" Megan nodded. She watched her mother walk away down the park alley for a while, and then she was distracted by the children playing ball on the playground. She wanted to run around with them too, but Megan couldn't move away from the stroller her brother was sleeping in. Time passed and her mom was gone. Passers-by sometimes came up to the 5-year-old girl wondering why she was alone with an infant. "Where are your parents?" Unfamiliar uncles and aunts asked. "My mom will come soon. She went away for a minute," the girl answered. But Ciara was still gone. There were fewer and fewer people in the park. Sam woke up and cried. Megan wheeled the stroller back and forth next to the bench to calm her brother, while she stared at the end of the alley, wondering when her mother's figure would appear. The girl gave Sam milk from a bottle. After he had eaten, he sucked the edge of the diaper in his hands and looked at his sister, who was ready to burst into tears. Finally, she stood up determinedly and wanted to leave the park. "Shouldn't we go home? Mom's probably there," she thought. But at the same moment, she sat down on the bench again. The girl was accustomed to obeying, so she decided, since her mother said to wait here, then she should wait. She took out a candy from her pocket, as suddenly she heard a voice. "Whose girl are you?" An elderly man with a broom in his hand stood next to the stroller. "Mommy's." Megan answered timidly. She was tired, very hungry, and upset by her mother's long absence. "Why are you sitting here all alone?" A park worker, who appeared to be a janitor or a watchman, asked. My mom and my brother and I went for a walk, and then she left and said she'd be here soon. I'm waiting and waiting, and she's not here, and then all the tension, worry, and fear came out in a flood of tears. Megan cried and Sam cried after her. Come on, the older man sat down next to her on the bench and stroked her hair. Come on, don't get all wet. We'll find your mom. How long has she been gone? I don't know. The girl kept sobbing. The man looked at her, thinking, scratched the back of his head with his hand, and then said, Come on, let's go. I know where we can find your missing mother. He added, Come on, don't be afraid. He rolled the stroller down the alley with one hand and held Megan's hand with the other. They came to a small wooden building at the back of the park. The man put a broom at the entrance and guided the girl inside, while he rolled the stroller in with the baby and shouted softly, Claire, come here. A woman in her 50s came out at the man's call. She was dressed plainly, with her hair in a bun at the back of her head and thick lensed glasses on her nose. What do you want? Look, I was walking down the alley to close the gate to the park, and on the bench she was sitting with a stroller, rocking a baby. She says she's waiting for her mother, but I've been watching them for a long time. They came to the park at lunchtime and have been sitting there all day. The woman scrutinized Megan, then shifted her gaze to the boy who was grunting and grunting in the stroller. Are they lost? She asked. No, we were waiting for Mommy, Megan answered, calming down a little. She said she'd be back soon, but she didn't show up. The woman bent over the stroller and pulled out the baby. Oh my God, he's all wet and stuffed, she exclaimed, feeling that the boy's onesies and blouse were wet and dirty. Do you have anything to change him into? Megan bent down, and under the stroller on the lattice partition was a cloth bag containing a change of clothes, a diaper, and a pair of pants. She handed it to the woman. Call the authorities, Greg, she said, undressing the child on the table where there were mugs and papers. What's there to say? Greg didn't understand. As it is, just say that you found children in the park. That's the last thing we need. The man cursed. I thought I'd have a good night's sleep or watch TV. There and took a cup, because my old lady at home does not give a shot to drink. And here. Holy shit, such a situation is emerging. Now I'll have to testify all night, where I took the children, who they are, where the mother disappeared. And what do I know? Continuing to grumble, Greg went to the phone and picked it up. Hello, this is from the City Park of Culture and Recreation. My name is Greg. I found some children in the park. They are sitting here. An older girl and a very young boy. Of course, we'll be waiting for you. The man hung up. They said to wait, he said to Claire, who looked at him questioningly. Where are we going to go now? We're not going to kick them out into the night. Soon the police entered the room, a man and a young girl in uniform. Megan stared at them. She knew the militia took bad people away. She didn't understand why these men had come for her and her brother. The policeman questioned Claire and Greg, then said, We're taking them away. If the woman, the children's mother, shows up, tell us, and tell her that the kids were taken to the 36th police station. The park workers nodded. They said, of course, we'll do everything as it should be done. Marinka wanted to cry from fear. She felt a lump coming up to her throat. She held on with all her might. She was put in the back seat of the car, and the girl in uniform sat next to her, holding Sam in her arms. At the police station, Megan was asked various questions at length. Where is your mom? What's her name? Where does she work? Where do you live? But the girl could not answer anything. She didn't know the address. She only said that Daddy died, and Mom used to work at the hospital. But she doesn't go to work now because she has to take care of Sam. Do you and your brother have grandparents? The policewoman asked her. No, just Aunt Kate, Megan replied. She comes to us when Mom is ... and brings us food. I see. The girl pressed her lips and looked meaningfully at her colleague, who, sitting at the table, was drawing up a protocol. Another socially dysfunctional family. Call the guardianship. Someone from the Department of Juvenile Affairs will determine. And yes, call the duty officer. Let him put in the summary of incidents and send to other departments. If the woman's a drinker, maybe she's out on the street somewhere. Megan was tired. She wanted to sleep, and her stomach rumbled unpleasantly with hunger. The girl handed her a glass of tea and a cookie. After a while, Megan fell into a shallow, disturbing dream in which she saw her mother. She was walking down an alley in the park, getting farther and farther away. The girl wanted to run after her, but her legs were cotton, not moving at all. Megan woke up when the room became very noisy. Strangers were talking about something, pulling out some papers, writing something on them. Then they took Sam and left. "Don't worry," said the uniformed girl. "Soon they will come for you." The girl didn't understand who was coming for her. Most of all, she was worried that Sam was not around. Her mom would scold her that she had lost her brother. In the morning, Megan was brought to the orphanage. First, she was examined by a doctor. Then some aunt took the girl by the hand and took her to the shower room, washed her and gave her clean underwear, a flannel robe and tights. "Get dressed and come with me. I'll feed you," said the woman. "Are you hungry?" The girl nodded her head. In the spacious dining room, where the nanny led her, there were several small tables with stools. Just like our kindergarten, Megan thought. She sat down at the table, on which the nanny placed a glass of cocoa, semolina, and a bun. "Eat, soon all the boys will wake up and come to breakfast. Then you'll get acquainted." The nanny stroked the girl's head, sighed another orphan. What kind of mothers are these who don't need their own children? When a bunch of children rushed into the dining room, hurriedly taking seats at the tables, Megan approached the nanny and asked, "Where's my baby brother?" "How should I know?" The woman shrugged her shoulders. "They probably took him to the orphanage. He's still very young." Megan didn't know what an orphanage was, but she knew that Sam was gone, and that made her chest feel cold, sad, and scared. Megan's 6-month-old baby brother was lying on a changing table in the office of Jessica Smith, the head of the infant home. Her assistant Clara was feeding the boy formula from a bottle. Leaning over the baby, she was saying, "Eat, sweetie, he's hungry. He's so hungry, he's yapping." I don't understand what these moms lack. Jessica Smith was indignant. "How many years I've been working in an orphanage, and every time they bring such abandoned children, my heart bleeds." "You don't say. He's a sweet little boy," Clara nodded her head. Blue eyes, blonde hair.
"He's healthy too." The doctor said after the examination that he had no health problems, that he was developing in accordance with his age. But his mother abandoned him, and where? In the street.
"You're right. She could have brought it to the institution and given it up honestly. What if something happened to the kid in the park? What a thing to leave your baby with your 5-year-old sister."
"I'd sterilize those mothers, Clara, so they couldn't have any more babies. You think she'll grieve, come running and beg me to give her kids to her? No way. She'll make more children on a drunken binge and then abandon them just like that." Jessica Smith turned away from the window, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "But it may be for the best."
Clara looked at the superintendent in surprise. What good could it be? Now he would go to the orphanage, then to a boarding school, and then he would be alone in the whole world. No relatives, no loved ones. "What about you and me?" Jessica Smith asked, approaching Clara, who had finished feeding Sam and was changing him into a clean onesie. "It's our responsibility not to let this little man be lost alone, not to be lost in the big world without support. Do you think someone will adopt him?" Clara rocked Sam in her arms. The baby was peacefully sleeping. "I don't think, but I know," Jessica Smith said firmly. "I have a very wealthy foreign couple in mind. They have been asking for a baby for a long time. They live in Italy. They are very wealthy people, but they are not old. But that is none of our business. This boy fully fits their description. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed. They promise to pay well. And you, when they come, do not dare to say that his mother is an alcoholic. These Europeans are very suspicious. They think that if the mother drank, then the child will not do well. Just as long as they do not find the child in another institution. Let's hope so." The morning was warm and sunny. Standing on the playground next to the sandbox, Megan greeted the children. Moms and dads came through the wicket, leading their children by the hand. "Hello, Megan," they greeted the teacher, and she smiled and nodded. It was the first work week after vacation. For a whole month, the kindergarten where Megan worked was under repair, and the staff enjoyed their vacation. Now everyone was back together and life would begin again, full of children's laughter, worries, and activities with the little ones. The children missed their teacher too, and happily showed off the toys they had brought with them, though Megan didn't approve. She thought that there were enough dolls, cubes, and constructors in the group. Besides, there were often conflicts between the children because of their personal toys. "My daddy bought me a new doll," Lara said, showing her teacher a new toy. Megan remembered what had happened to the old doll that Lara had brought to the kindergarten before her vacation. The girls had ripped its head off. Oh, how hard it had been for the teacher. Because of that doll, the girls fought in the locker room. Lara even scratched her cheek, and a drop of blood appeared on the girl's skin. The principal scolded Megan like a delinquent girl. "You know who her father is. One word from him would be enough to get us all out of here and never be able to find work again." The superintendent reprimanded Megan. "You can talk him down any way you want so he doesn't complain." "But they're kids, and things happen to them," the teacher tried to justify herself. "Different. But I don't even want to hear what Laura's father will say to you when you tell him that." Increasingly raising her tone, said the headmistress. "I've already called him. Soon he will arrive in his foreign car, accompanied by security guards, and we will not show a little." While waiting for the girl's parent, Megan was worried, but when he entered the group, she tried not to show any sign. "Daddy," Lara to her father, "look what they did to my doll." The man hugged his daughter, looked at her cheek. The scratch had been treated, and the girl had a band-aid on her cheek. "I'll take my daughter home," the man said. "She'll be with a nanny for a few days." Yes, of course, Megan nodded her head. She was ready to explain what had happened between the children, but the man gestured for her to stop, adding, "Don't say anything. Just imagine, if it was not a simple scratch, but a more serious injury, where would you as a caretaker go now?" "Patrick, I always say that you should not bring toys from home. The boys have constant conflicts because of them." "Shut up," the man shouted at her. "Your job is to make sure that these conflicts do not arise." Leaving the locker room with his daughter, he turned around and looked carefully at the teacher. "Today I only warned you. Please think carefully about what I said." Megan sighed and escorted the father and daughter out with a look. She was in no way afraid of this overbearing and strong man. She just put herself in his shoes and wondered what she would do if something like this happened to her child. She would probably be nervous too, maybe even swear and yell at the negligent teacher. But Megan had no children of her own. After leaving the orphanage, the girl went to teacher training school for kindergarten teacher. Megan has always loved children, constantly fiddled with the younger ones, taught them to draw, mold plasticine, braided pigtails girls in the boarding school. And the little ones reached out to her. All day long she played with younger children, which caused ridicule peers. "Look, our Megan again in the mother-daughter game." They laughed. "Megan, adopt them." All at once, joked the older kids. And she didn't take offense, reading books to the children, carefully covering them at night if their blankets slipped, and in the morning making sure they brushed their teeth and washed their faces. Sometimes she wondered if someone else cared for her little brother the same way. Megan never forgot about Sam. She was only 5 when they were separated, but she still remembered her mother, their apartment, Ciara's drunken friends, and even her neighbor, Aunt Kate. Megan also remembered that day in the park when she had sat next to the stroller for a long time, waiting for her mother. As she grew older, she wondered more and more why her mom hadn't come back then. Maybe something had happened to her. What if she had been taken to the hospital? What if she had been attacked by bandits? There had to be some reason why Mom hadn't come back to the park for them. But with each passing year, Megan realized more and more clearly that her mother had simply abandoned them. A year before graduation from the orphanage, when the girl was 15 years old, the superintendent showed her documents, which contained scant information about the girl's mother, as well as the address where Megan and her brother used to live. It turned out that the police officers managed to track down Ciara, but immediately after that she was deprived of parental rights to both children. The woman was found drunk as a skunk on the street. She was lying near a liquor store, holding an empty bottle of vodka. Passers-by were indignant. Where did you see a drunken woman sleeping in the middle of the day on a busy street? Someone called the police, and Ciara was taken to the station.
After hearing about it, Megan decided to find her mother. The girl wanted to know where her brother was. She found the address of the barracks, which she vaguely remembered from childhood memories, went up to the second floor and knocked on the door. No one opened it. Megan knocked a few more times and then went out into the yard and sat down on a bench.
"Jesus, Megan, are you there?" She heard a cheerful call. An older woman ran up to the girl. Megan recognized her as her neighbor, who often took her to her house as a child and treated her to delicious gingerbread. She remembered how Aunt Kate had scolded her mother for drinking and going out, leaving the children alone at home hungry and unsupervised. "I'm Aunt Kate. Don't you remember me?" the woman asked, looking into the girl's face. "I do," Megan smiled. "Oh, why are you sitting here? Come to my place, let's drink tea and talk." Aunt Kate took Megan's hand. "Where is Mom?" the girl asked, and felt how strange the word mom sounded, as if she was asking not about her family, but about a complete stranger. Come, I'll tell you everything." Aunt Kate pulled her by the hand in the direction of the neighboring entrance, hugged her by the shoulders, and led her to her apartment. Nothing had changed in Aunt Kate's house. Even the furniture was in the same place and smelled the same as it did when she was a child. Megan hesitantly walked into the room and sat down on the couch. The neighbor fussed. She wanted to treat Megan to something delicious. "I'll put the kettle on," she said. In a flash, the table was filled with candy, cookies, and gingerbread, the little goodies Aunt Kate kept on hand in case she had visitors. Over tea, she began to ask the girl questions. "How are you doing, Megan? No trouble?" "I'm fine, Aunt Kate, I'm fine. I'll be out of the orphanage soon. I'm going to teacher training school." "You like kids, huh? No wonder. Sam was in your arms all the time, even though you were just a baby yourself." "Do you know where my brother is?" Megan asked with concern in her eyes. The neighbor sighed, rubbing the corner of the tablecloth. "I came to see you, Megan, at the orphanage. A long time ago, really, a couple weeks after you and Sam were taken away. They wouldn't let me in, said I wasn't related." "Thank you for your concern." Megan waited impatiently for Aunt Kate to say something about her brother. "And I tried to find Sam," the woman continued after a short pause. "He was just a baby, so they put him in an orphanage. I went there too, all the way to the head of the house, and she told me that Sam was adopted." "How am I supposed to find him?" Megan was worried. She wondered if there was any way to find him. "You can't," Aunt Kate cut off her faint hope. "If a child is adopted, all information about his new parents and where he lives is classified. Just like that, you know. I wish I could find him. He doesn't remember me at all, does he?" the girl asked. For sure, the woman nodded her head. How could a 6-month-old child remember anything? And his parents hardly know that his adopted son has a sister. And if they do, they won't tell. Why would they? "So I'll never see Sam again?" Megan was upset. "Life is long and unpredictable," the neighbor said thoughtfully. "No one can know how it will turn out and what surprises it will bring." They were silent, drinking tea and thinking about the complexity of human destinies. Finally, Aunt Kate broke the silence.
"Your mum's dead, Megan," she said sadly. "It's been a week since she was buried."
The girl looked up at her neighbor. She didn't remember her mother well, but her heart still stabbed, pinched, squeezed so tightly that it was hard to breathe. "She drank a lot," Aunt Kate continued, trying to choose her words so as not to hurt Megan's soul. Drunken friends had set fires in their apartment a few times, and the whole house was on fire. They went to the council, demanded that Grace be evicted. But no way. Megan listened to her, staring thoughtfully out the window. Maybe it was for the best that her mother had left her and Sam in the park. Megan herself was well fed and clothed, doing well in school. And Sam has parents now. I wonder if they take good care of him, if they love him like family, she thought. "Oh yes," the neighbor suddenly became alarmed. "I found the photo cards when I cleaned your apartment after your mother's death. I'll bring them to you. I kept them for myself, thinking I'd give them to you or Sam someday." Aunt Kate left the kitchen and returned a minute later, holding the black and white photos. She placed them on the table in front of the girl and sat down across from her again. Megan took the pictures carefully, gently, as if they were something very precious, very expensive. There they were, Dad, Mom, and her, and in another picture, Dad and Mom alone. Mom in a wedding dress and veil, and Dad in a suit and tie. Young and very handsome, the parents were smiling, looking very happy. And in this photo, Megan and Dad are next to the stroller Sam was sleeping in. "You know what, Megan," Aunt Kate said in a serious, firm voice. "Go to the council, claim you're the late Ciara's daughter so you can keep the apartment. If you get out of the orphanage, where will you live? I've saved all my papers. I've got them. Our barracks is being demolished. Maybe you'll get a comfortable apartment." "Thank you, Aunt Kate." Megan thanked her neighbor. "I'll be sure to go." The woman went into the room and brought a cardboard folder, handed it to the girl. Here's everything. It's got documents and everything I thought you might remember. I don't know why, but I also put a fireman's badge, which was left by your father, and his certificates for excellent service. Can I have more pictures? Megan asked. Oh, come on, baby, of course you can. I saved them for you. The neighbor reached for a nail on the wall. And here are the keys to your apartment. They're spare keys. I've always kept them with me. Thank you, Megan thanked the woman again. They hugged tightly, and the girl left the apartment. Looking out the window as she walked slowly across the yard, Aunt Kate crossed her figure. God take care of you, girl. The first day of work after vacation went well. Apparently, having missed each other, the children played merrily, not even fighting. Megan also had time to have a good rest and began her duties with enthusiasm. She has a preparatory group. We need to do more to prepare the children for school. After breakfast, she repeated with the children the alphabet and numbers up to 10, and then took the children for a walk outside. While the children played, Megan and two other teachers from other groups talked on the sidelines. Jake. Drop that rock right now, Megan's colleague Vanessa shouted when she saw that the wiry boy had picked up a shank from the ground and was about to throw it at one of the kids. I'll put you next to me now and you'll stand punished for the whole walk. The boy put the stone on the ground and ran away. I'll turn gray with them. These are not children, but a punishment of some kind. Vanessa theatrically raised her hands to the sky. Well, why the vacation ends so quickly? And do not say, supported her Angelina. My friend and I went to the South for 2 weeks. Girls, I'll tell you, the best place to have a great, there is no romance. The men at the resorts were swarming around us like bees. I still do not understand. Angelina, how do you manage on the salary of a kindergarten teacher in the resorts to roll? Vanessa asked. If it were not for my husband, I would be alone on these pennies long ago, starved to death. You just don't understand anything. Angelina raised her finger up moralizingly. At the resort is not money is the most important thing. Yes? I wonder what is. No, of course, you need to buy a plane ticket, book accommodation, but you can do it all in advance, so you don't have to spend your vacation money later. Angelina sighed and folded her arms on her chest. At the resort, girls, the main thing is the bow. What Vanessa didn't understand, staring at her friend and colleague. What onions? Onions. Oh, you're dark, Vanessa. Sitting with your husband in a paneled 2-bedroom, nowhere to go work, home, work, and people have long since learned to live in a new way. What's onions got to do with it? The teacher persisted. Onion means image. What image you create for yourself, so you will spend your vacation at sea. That's what you should spend your money on. Nice clothes, makeup, manicures, and rejuvenation treatments. You, by the way, both of you should go to a beautician. Without hearing Angelina, Megan and Vanessa laughed. Angelina had a very smart look when she gave advice, and she herself was still not married by her 40s. And that, without embarrassment, continued to share with her friends the secrets of winning cavaliers. I'm here before going to the resort, went to a familiar beautician, Angelina said, as if inadvertently showing a new fashionable manicure. So she advised me a beauty injection. It's just magic. Wrinkles are instantly smoothed out, as if there was never a hint of them. And where did your beautician injected you? Laughing, asked Vanessa. There, Angelina pointed her manicured finger on her forehead between her eyebrows. My friend noticed that on the forehead wrinkles appear. They really spoil the expression of the face, not to mention the fact that they give away age. And now her forehead is as smooth as a young girl's. You should have it done too. Vanessa took a small mirror out of her pocket and looked into it. There was a small crease on her forehead. The woman wrinkled her nose, then ran her hand over the wrinkle. What did I tell you? Angelina looked triumphant. Soon your man will tell you that you've grown old and look like Baba Yaga. Oh, come on. Vanessa waved away, but stopped laughing, thinking. And you, Megan, too. It would not hurt to pierce the interbrow, because your expression always seems frowning and dissatisfied. Oh, thank you, Angelina. I'd better refrain from it, so I don't have to walk around with facial nerve palsy, Megan said politely but knowingly. You girls don't look after your appearance, Angelina shook her head. Women after 40, there is nothing left but to resort to the help of specialists, because nature at this age turns to us backwards, and to the young backwards. Don't be crazy. Angelina Vanessa was still trying to argue with her. There is nothing more beautiful than natural beauty. Listen to you. Megan and I should have our asses tightened and our boobs made of silicone. I don't think that's going to help you. Angelina waved her hand. After work, you rush to your husband like a horse at the races, and from Megan in general, men flee like the plague. What's wrong with loving my husband? Vanessa stood up, but Megan stopped the argument. A glance at her watch told her it was time to go to group. It was getting close to lunchtime. After work, Megan stopped by the supermarket. On the way back from daycare, she suddenly remembered Angelina's words for some reason. She was right about something. Megan would soon be 45, and it seemed like a lifetime, but no family, no children. She gives all her warmth to her students, and those who graduated from kindergarten probably forget about her. However, Megan had a chance to marry. While studying in pedagogical college, she met a student of medical school, future surgeon Brandon. The guy was nice, well-mannered, intelligent. Everyone said that he was waiting for a brilliant future. After graduating from the university, he was assigned to the Far East. That day, he and Megan celebrated Brandon's diploma in a small summer cafe. The guy took her hand, looked carefully into her eyes, and asked, "Will you be my wife?" Megan was confused. She liked Brandon very much. The girl was very afraid that his parents, who were also doctors, would treat her badly because she was brought up in an orphanage. But they perfectly accepted Megan. Never a word or a look did not express dissatisfaction with the choice of their son. She and Brandon had noble and necessary professions. She brought up children, and he saved people from terrible diseases. When Brandon proposed to Megan, she did not know that he had already been assigned to faraway Boston. After saying, "I'll think about it," she was almost certain she'd say yes. There was no reason for Megan to turn Brandon down. But when she heard that they were going to move to Boston, she flatly refused to even hear about marriage. Not understanding why Megan was acting this way, the young man tried to ask her what was wrong with the move. Then Megan confessed she's waiting for her brother, who was lost as a child, to grow up and return to her hometown someday. That way there's a chance they'll find each other again. And if she leaves, she'll never see Sam again. "You just don't love me," Brandon exclaimed angrily. The reason his girlfriend had given him seemed to him to be a small enough reason to destroy the union of two loving hearts. Megan did not begin to change the guy's mind to prove that she loved him. Saying sorry, she just left. Brandon tried to call her several times, but then he left and she heard nothing more about the failed fiancé. Walking out of the supermarket with full bags of groceries, she hesitated and tripped over the curb. The bags fell out of her hands. Potatoes, onions, tomatoes, sausage, and tomatoes flew across the sidewalk. All the contents of her bags ended up on the pavement. Squatting down, the woman rushed to pick up the groceries when suddenly she saw feet in polished shoes and black pants in front of her. Megan slowly lifted her head, looking up. Standing in front of her was Patrick, Lara's dad, who had had a doll broken by the girls in the group a month ago. The man sat down as well and began to gather potato tubers into a bag. "Hello, Megan," he said. "What are you doing, Patrick? Don't be." "Helping you pick up fallen groceries." "Is something wrong?" The man straightened up, holding a bag with a broken handle. "Thank you," Megan thanked him, "but I could have done it myself." "I'm sure you could," Patrick said with a smile, and she was quite timid in front of this solid, handsome man. "Are you going home?" "Yes," Megan answered quickly, then wondered why she was telling him where she was going. The woman held out her hands to take the package from Patrick, but he prevented her from doing so. "Then let me give you a ride home," the man offered politely. "Your bags are torn. It's uncomfortable to carry them. And what if you drop them again, and I'm not around?" The man's face was completely serious, even imperturbable, but his eyes sparkled with fun. Megan was completely confused, frozen in indecision, looking at the bags in Patrick's hands, then at him. Seeing that her daughter's teacher was hesitant to agree to his proposal, Patrick added, "I feel bad about that conversation. To be blunt, I feel guilty that I spoke to you so rudely when Lara's cheek was scratched. So consider my offer as a sincere apology. Let's go." He took Megan by the elbow and led her to a beautiful black car. The driver jumped out and opened the door. The woman sat down in the back seat. Through the window pane, she saw the driver take the bags from Patrick's hands and put them in the trunk.
The car moved off. Megan felt uncomfortable about taking advantage of her kindergartner's father's offer, and he seemed to see the whole thing as a fun adventure.
"How did Lara behave in kindergarten today?" he asked. "That's a strange question," Megan smiled. "Your daughter's behavior is impeccable." "I guess you just don't want to upset me," the man tilted his head slightly and looked at the teacher. "Her nanny is just a barrage of complaints about me when I come home. Lara doesn't eat her porridge well. Lara refused to sleep during the day. Lara stepped in a puddle and soaked her shoes." Patrick laughed merrily. "The porridge, the afternoon nap, and the wet shoes are minor things," Megan smiled. "Much more important, how Lara perceived her surroundings and people." "Really?" the man asked. "How does she perceive it all?" With curiosity, Megan answered confidently. "In this case, she's just studying the nanny's reaction. So she's getting an experience that fits into a simple pattern. If I do this, then this will happen. And I thought she was just messing with the nanny and testing her patience." The car pulled up in front of Megan's driveway. The driver obligingly opened the door and gave her a handshake, then pulled bags from the trunk of the car. "It was a pleasure giving you a ride," Patrick said, and shook Megan's hand. "Igor will help you carry the groceries to the apartment." Realizing that it was useless to refuse help, the woman didn't resist. "Goodbye," she said, and walked toward the elevator, feeling Lara's father's gaze on her back. Stepping out of the elevator, she opened the apartment door with her key and let the driver in. He strode resolutely into the kitchen, put the bags on the table, and, saying "have a good day," and left. Closing the door behind the guy, Megan kicked off her shoes and hung her coat on her shoulders. She looked at herself in the large mirror above the dresser in the hallway. "The wrinkle on my forehead is really noticeable," the woman thought, and ran her finger along the skin between her eyebrows where a shallow crease was visible. Angelina was right. Megan wasn't doing well with men. Everything in her life seemed fine. Aunt Kate, a neighbor in the barracks, had advised her to go to the city council to apply for privatization. A few years later, the barracks was demolished, and all the residents were given apartments in a new 9-story building in a bedroom community. True, by that time Aunt Kate was already gone. Megan, who then lived in a dormitory pedagogical school, was very happy to have her own apartment. As soon as the occupancy of the apartment building began, she moved in and began to organize the apartment. Megan herself glued wallpaper, chose furniture, bought dishes. She hardly knew how to cook, as the orphanage did not teach her how to cook. So in the evening she learned recipes for different dishes, finding them on the internet. Sometimes her friends from the pedagogical school came to her, and they organized parties. Often the girls came with their boyfriends and brought friends to introduce Megan to them, but nothing much ever worked out for her with the opposite sex. After getting a job in a kindergarten, the girl generally immersed herself in the process of raising other people's children and forgot about her personal life. After Brandon's proposal to marry him, she realized that the man who would be next to her would always demand attention only to him, and Megan dreamed of finding a brother, the nearest and dearest person on earth. Her Sam. Quiet time in kindergarten was a time when the kindergartners could not only eat lunch, but also chat. So this time Vanessa, Megan, and Angelina sat down at the table and shared news.
"Yesterday I found a website with so many great cosmetics," Angelina said, munching on a cutlet. "I bought so many things: masks, balms, and rejuvenating creams."
"Good for you," said Vanessa. "Only you when you meet men. Leave your passport at work." "Why is that?" Angelina did not understand. "And that they did not find it and the year of your birth did not see. Then you know masks and injections will not help. Your young suitors will run away, shining their heels." Vanessa laughed merrily, and Megan, looking at the stretched face of Angelina, smiled. Vanessa and Angelina were always teasing each other, and it was fun to watch them bicker. "By the way, you don't care what you look like, and I'm going to keep up the good work," said Angelina, fixing her hair. "Our brand has been on the market for 100 years. "That's a great slogan for you," Vanessa continued to tease her friend. "Or it could be, despite 100 years of experience, I'm still functioning."
"Come on," Angelina waved her hand, pouting. The woman wanted to change the subject, so she turned to Megan.
"It's your birthday coming up, isn't it?" "Isn't it?" "You're not wrong," Angelina, Vanessa said without letting Megan answer. "And not just a birthday, but an anniversary. 45, the woman is a berry again. How are we going to celebrate Megan?" "I don't think I'm going to celebrate," Megan tried to dismiss her friends. Yeah, that's how we let your birthday get washed out. No, we'll celebrate it properly. Angelina wagged her finger at Megan. Why don't we go to a restaurant? My husband and I have not been anywhere for so long. You forgot to add, we haven't been anywhere, but the couch. Angelina interrupted Vanessa. No restaurants. It is no longer relevant, and in general, there is boring and there are no decent free men. And our Marinachka Vladimirovna should urgently look for a beau. Megan laughed. Too serious were the plans for her anniversary among her friends, and she had not even thought about how she would celebrate the anniversary. Girls, but I do not want to cook anything. Fuss. Think about how to have fun. I'll buy a cake, a bottle of wine. We'll sit around when the kids are in group. No way, Angelina squealed. You don't want to organize anything, don't. Vanessa and I will organize everything ourselves, right? Vanessa had no plans to organize the party. She wanted to come to the restaurant ready to have a good evening. But Angelina's look was so convincing that she had to nod her head. That's right. Do whatever you want, Megan agreed. She never celebrated her birthday, never invited anyone. Last year she'd bought herself a bottle of wine and brought a box of chocolates from work, donated by her co-workers. She sat at the table in the kitchen, set the pictures she'd once taken from Aunt Kate in front of her, poured the wine into a glass, drank, and sank into the thoughts that troubled her. For a long time, Megan had searched for her brother Sam on social media, but then she realized it was a pointless endeavor. If he was adopted, they could have changed his first and last name, and even his date of birth. Sam might not even know he had an older sister, and she, seeing him, wouldn't even recognize him. It had been so long since she'd seen her brother. Plus, he was just an infant, and children change as they get older. Then Megan decided to apply to a famous TV program to look for her brother. But there was no news from there for several years. On her birthday, she drank wine alone and thought that maybe Sam was just around the corner, maybe even in her town or some of the neighboring towns, and she couldn't find him. Megan was brought out of her brooding state by Angelina. She shook her by the shoulder. Ali, wake up, enchanted. Excuse me, girls, I've been thinking. We're asking you what to get you for your anniversary. I suggest beauty products or a certificate to a beautician, and Vanessa says money. I don't even know, Megan replied uncertainly. That's what I'm saying. Why do you need money? Where are you going to spend it? Your paycheck alone is enough. There's always something to spend money on, Vanessa argued. Oh, don't be ridiculous. Angelina waved a hand at her. If you knew where you could spend it, you wouldn't be wearing the same boots for the third year. Well, you've got a nerve, Vanessa took offense. Girls, stop fighting and arguing over nothing. I don't need anything, Megan tried to reconcile her friends. I don't need anything. But the active and active Angelina could not be stopped. All right, let's do neither you nor me, she said to Vanessa. Let's give Megan a gift she'll remember for the rest of her life. I have an idea. As they talked, the quiet time flew by. It was time to get the kids out of bed and serve the afternoon snack. The women went off to their groups. Megan spent the rest of the day working with the children in the group, and then took them outside. It was a nice day, and the children scattered around the grounds playing catch-up and ball. Gradually, their parents came and picked them up one by one, taking them home. When all the children had been taken away, Megan was picking up the toys left behind by the children. Suddenly, she saw Patrick, Lara's father, walking down the path. Hello, Megan, the man greeted her. Good evening, Patrick and Lara has already been picked up by the nanny, said Megan, surprised that the girl's father came to the kindergarten, and even so late, when all the children were already taken away by their parents. I know, the man stopped next to her. I just really wanted to walk you home. You don't have to, and it's embarrassing, Megan said. She was confused, not understanding why her father had suddenly decided to take her home. The woman looked at the road. There, behind the fence, was Patrick's car, and the driver was standing nearby, waiting for the chief. Do not refuse. I am very pleased. And secondly, I would like to talk to you about your daughter, said the man. It's very important to me. Well, all right, Megan agreed. I'll just go up to the group, get my purse, and lock the door. I'll wait for you by the car. Patrick turned and walked down the path toward the gate. When Megan approached him, he opened the car door for her. Please have a seat. He helped Megan sit down and sat down himself. On the way out, the man asked the kindergarten teacher, "How was your day, Megan?" "Good, nothing extraordinary happened. The children are healthy, active, no one quarreled, and that's great," she replied with a smile. "What did my Lara do?" Patrick asked. "You have a wonderful, very well-mannered and smart girl," praised Megan. "That's true. I haven't had any problems with her in previous years." "I think you're giving her too much credit." "It's not my policy at all," Megan replied. "I always try to tell parents the truth about their children. Although many people don't always like to get a teacher's opinion about their child." "I'm curious," the teacher's interlocutor responded enthusiastically. "Your daughter is a non-conflict, inquisitive child, but in my opinion she lacks female affection, communication." "Megan, I'm sorry to interrupt you," the man looked her in the eyes. "Let's go for a walk. It's only a couple of blocks from your house, and the weather today is so conducive to walking." Megan was surprised at the suggestion, but agreed to walk. They got out of the car and walked slowly down the sidewalk. "Let me start by saying that Lara is not my daughter," Patrick told Megan. "Then whose is it?" "My own little sister. When Lara was only a couple months old, her sister disappeared, and then she was found murdered." "That's awful," Megan said with a shrug. "Yes, it was a tragedy," Patrick replied. But Megan opened her mouth, but the man beat her to it. "Do you mean to ask why she calls me Dad?" he asked. "Actually, yes. At my sister's grave, I gave my word that I would raise Lara as my own daughter. I've never been married. I've never had children of my own. At least I don't know anything about them. I just took care of the girl, and one day she said her first word, and it was Daddy. That's when I decided, let her think I was her father." "That's an amazing story," Megan said quietly. "Looking at Lara, you'd never think she was worried or lacking affection, warmth, love. You make a wonderful father." "You think so?" They'd already reached Megan's driveway and the man stopped. He looked at her with his velvet brown eyes, and she felt as if he and Patrick had been friends for a long time. Their conversation during the short walk had been very confidential. "Megan," the man said, "I enjoyed talking to you so much. You're a wonderful, understanding, attentive person and a very beautiful woman." Megan was a little embarrassed, lowered her eyes, but felt that the words of Lara's father were pleasant to her. "I would very much like to invite you to the restaurant this Sunday. Would you mind?" Patrick looked hopefully at Megan. "We could have a nice meal, relax and socialize. Or suggest your own program, where you'd like to go." "I'll make it happen." "You know, Patrick," Megan smiled, "you don't have to go to a restaurant to socialize and eat good food." "Really? Where do you want to go?" "I'm inviting you to my house. It's my birthday on Sunday." "That's wonderful. I'm happy to accept your invitation." "Thank you." The man took her hand and touched her lips. Megan smiled, tilting her head slightly, and when he let go of her palm, she said, "See you later then?" "Goodbye, we'll definitely be at your place on Sunday." Megan headed for her driveway, and Patrick watched her for a few more minutes. He really liked this calm, a little sad, intelligent, and beautiful woman. "I should instruct my secretary to pick out the best bouquet of flowers and suggest gift options," he thought as he got into the car. The week was drawing to a close. In the evening, Vanessa and Angelina went shopping. They couldn't decide what to get their friend for her anniversary. "It has to be special," Angelina said, "so that she would remember it for the rest of her life." "Why bother?" Vanessa argued. "The main thing is to make Megan feel good." "Ugh, I don't like cliches," Angelina exclaimed, stopping. "A person should get something he doesn't have. And you, then a set, then bedding, then a vase. Do you think she needs it?" "No, of course not, but they're all necessities." "What do you think she needs?" "She needs a good man, that's what she needs," Angelina answered firmly. "Without men, life is a bore." Vanessa looked at her friend in surprise. No, of course she had seen in various TV shows how men are packed in a big box, and then they jump out of it, like a devil from a snuff box in small panties and with a bare torso. But to give a gift like that to Megan, it never occurred to her. "You want to pay for a stripper?" "A call boy?" Vanessa asked uncertainly. "Call it what you want, but I've decided Megan needs a jolt. We'll get her a man for tonight, and let her figure out what to do with him. Where are we going to get him? Let's go. Angelina pulled her friend by the hand to a bench across the street from the hypermarket. Sitting down on the bench, she took out her cell phone from her purse. After searching something in it, she dialed a number. Hello, we need a boy, that is, a man for entertainment on the anniversary. How much? Are you crazy or what? Are your men made of gold? Having switched off, Angelina indignantly said, You're completely crazy. A man for the evening for the price of an eagle horse, damn. What? Did the idea fail? Vanessa gloated. Let's go, there is a great department of good, quality linens. The woman nodded toward the hypermarket. But Angelina was not the kind of person to give up at the first difficulties. Pensive, she remained silent, looking in front of her. Suddenly her gaze fell on a beggar who sat right on the ground next to the shopping center. I have an idea, she exclaimed. We'll find a man for Megan Vladimirovna right on the street. I'm stupid. They're literally lying around and we don't even notice. What do you mean? Vanessa didn't know what her friend was talking about. You see that beggar over there? Well, that's who we're bringing to the anniversary. Why, we'll pay him, and he'll go like a calf on a string. They'll do anything for any penny. Are you crazy? I think it's a bad idea, Vanessa said uncertainly. It's a good idea. Angelina got up from the bench, and with a decisive step went to the homeless man. Stopping in front of the homeless man, in front of whom lay an old, dusty hat with change, she opened her purse and gave the homeless man 100 rubles. He nodded gratefully. Thank you. Do you sit here every day? She asked, pretending that she wanted to take out another bill from a pink leather purse with rhinestones. I sit here from morning till evening, answered the homeless man. Do you want a lot of money? You want to sell my organs? The homeless man was frightened. He got ready, grabbed his hat, and scattered the money in the pockets of his dirty raincoat. He was about to run away from this well-dressed strange woman, but she stopped him. Wait, what the hell do I need your organs for? What, should I pickle them or something? Trying not to scare the homeless man, Angelina said, I suggest you go to visit a lady. She has a holiday, a birthday, you know. The homeless man looked at Angelina with empty, frightened eyes, not understanding what this beautiful woman with bright makeup on her face wanted from him.
You will congratulate her and spend the evening with her. You'll eat delicious food and drink wine, and I'll give you this much. Angelina took out 2 red $5,000 bills from her purse. 10,000 rubles for one evening. How do you like the offer?
And you won't cheat? The homeless man was still looking at Angelina with apprehension. Yes, painfully, I need to offend you. You already out, life offended. On the contrary, you will help me, and I will help you. The homeless man nodded his head. That's good, that's the deal, Angelina rejoiced. In short, tomorrow sit here. We'll come to you with that woman over there, and then you'll get your money. You won't let me down. Shaking his head, the man sat down again on the paving stones and spread his hat in front of him. Angelina stood next to him for a while, thought, and then, shoving another 50 rubles into the homeless man's hat, walked toward Vanessa sitting on the bench. The thing is in the hat, she said triumphantly. I'm good, and that's what I had to prove. Vanessa thought her colleague's idea was crazy, reckless, and ridiculous, but Angelina couldn't be persuaded. Adventurism is always fountained in her, making her go for the most reckless and crazy deeds. However, Angelina always got out of the most difficult situations. Vanessa still remembered the story, at which all the teachers in kindergarten laughed for a long time. Whether out of boredom for fun or for some other reason, she invited 5 men to her house for a date, locked the door, and threw the key out the window. When she then told how they, until the morning, whoever they wanted, tried to win her attention, everyone died with laughter. However, when the men, quite drunk, began to fight and the situation took a dangerous turn, Angelina had to call the emergency services to break down the door and let the raging men out. On Sunday, Megan decided to sleep longer, but forgot to turn off the alarm clock on her smartphone, and it persistently notified that it was 7:30. The woman turned off the alarm clock, but she couldn't go back to sleep. She took a shower, brewed coffee, and began to think about what to prepare for the holiday table to treat her friends. Megan was also worried about what Vanessa and Angelina would think of her when they saw Patrick. She hadn't told them she'd invited Lara's dad from her group to visit. Flipping through pages of websites on the internet, she wrote out a few salads, some other simple appetizers on a piece of paper, and decided to roast some French-style meat in the oven. The woman opened the refrigerator. Yesterday she had gone shopping and bought a couple of bottles of wine. A beautiful cake was also on the shelf next to the fruit. All that was left was to prepare everything. She laid out the ingredients needed for the holiday dishes on the table, put on an apron, and started cooking. Angelina and Vanessa met in the square near the hypermarket. Angelina, as always, was in a high, excited mood. She was anticipating how Megan would be impressed by their surprise. Vanessa, on the other hand, still thought Ricky's idea was stupid. I understand, to introduce her to a good man, decent, with a normal job, but you're dragging a bum to her.
Oh, believe me, tortured men make the best husbands. At least they're grateful, like dogs picked up off the street.
I'm amazed at you, Angelina. You have an answer for everything, and it's hard to argue with you. Don't argue with me, just do as I say. Let's go, there he is. He is sitting there, little dove, waiting like a sweetheart. Angelina giggled and went towards the homeless man, who was sitting in the same place as yesterday. The man, seeing Angelina, got excited, jumped up from the paving stone, stretched out in a string. "Hello, sufferer," cheerfully greeted the homeless man. "What's your name?" "Alex," said the man. He scratched his thickly stubbled chin and bent down to pick up his hat. Take the money. Throw this junk in the trash. There's no need to carry unnecessary dirt from the street."
The homeless man obeyed and then followed the women. Angelina brought her friend and the strange beggar to her house. "Take off your shoes on the landing. Because my floors are washed," she told him, "and throw off your clothes right away."
Angelina gave the homeless man a large bag to put his things in, and then led him into the hallway, looking him over from head to toe. For a minute it occurred to her that the clothes on the man were expensive, high quality, but they were very dirty and even torn in some places. The sweater had once been snow white, and the jeans had an almost obliterated but recognizable label of a famous brand on the back.
"How long have you been homeless?" she asked.
"About a month," the man answered. "I'm not from around here, I came to." "Spare me the details of your nomadic life," Angelina interrupted the homeless man. "Anyway, here's the bathroom. There's a towel, a razor, soap, shampoo, everything. Anything you might need. Go wash up and get cleaned up. Got it, Alex? Shit, is that a name or a nickname?" The man said nothing, walked through the bathroom door and locked himself inside. "Why did you lock yourself in?" Angelina shouted, laughing. "You think we're going to watch you? Yeah, we haven't seen your stuff, have we?" Vanessa poked her friend in the side. "Why are you doing this to him? He may be homeless, but he's a human being."
Angelina ignored her words and went into the room. She opened the closet and thought about what to wear as a gift for Megan.
"Well, Vanessa, shall we wrap our present in a pretty wrapper?" Angelina was having a lot of fun. Everything that was happening was an exciting adventure for her. The woman stood on a stool and pulled a large box from the mezzanine. "These are my late daddy's things," she said, nodding at the neatly folded shirts, pants, and jacket. The box even held my father's underwear. I don't know why I haven't thrown it all away. I can't bring myself to do it. From the bathroom, I heard the voice of Alex, the homeless guy. "Women, there is a robe hanging here. Can I put it on?" "Go ahead," shouted Angelina. A few seconds later, the homeless man appeared in the hallway, wearing a satin pink robe that barely covered his buttocks and did not fit over his chest. Angelina laughed, unable to contain her emotion. Vanessa smiled, saying glamorous. Alex was embarrassed. He crumpled in the doorway of the large living room, scrutinizing himself in the mirror. The women noted that after the laundering, the man looked quite decent. He looked no more than 40 years old, though at first Vanessa thought he looked about 50. Smoothly shaved with combed blonde hair, the man smelled of shampoo.
"Okay, come here," Angelina called to him in a commanding tone.
The woman started pulling clothes out of the box. Socks, underwear, pants, shirt, tie, fell on the couch. "Let's try them on," she said, pulling out her father's family underwear in front of the homeless man. The man hesitated, clearly embarrassed. "Could you turn away while I'm getting dressed?" he asked, looking at his employers with an embarrassed look. "Look, Laris, the Baron are shy," Angelina laughed again, and then added, "Okay, relax, we are in the kitchen, if anything." The women left the room, leaving Alex alone with a mountain of clothes left by Angelina's late father. When the man entered the kitchen, they stared in amazement. The homeless man looked decent enough, his suit fit neatly, and his blue shirt matched the color of his eyes. "Wow," Vanessa said in surprise. "And what did I tell you?" Angelina said triumphantly, pleased with herself. "Washed, combed, dressed up. What is not a handsome man? Would you like some tea?" The homeless man did not refuse. He sat down at the table, and Angelina put in front of him a cup with fragrant tea and a couple of sandwiches on a plate. The man happily munched on a bun and sausage, drinking his tea. Finally, Angelina put the cup in the sink and said,
"Stop eating, we're going to visit. There, and fatten up."
She looked at her watch and started to get ready. "We still have to pick up the flowers, let's hurry up," she said to Vanessa and Alex. Angelina was anticipating the emotions of the upcoming evening. She drew all kinds of pictures in her imagination. But most of all, she couldn't wait to see Megan's face when she found out that they had brought her a real street beggar as a gift. Vanessa thought the idea was silly, but being excited by Angelina's excitement, she decided to see what would happen. Standing on the doorstep of Megan's apartment, they shoved a bouquet of roses into the homeless man's hands. Vanessa pressed the bell button. A beautiful trill sounded, followed by footsteps. Hi, the friends shouted together when they saw a dressed-up colleague in a white collar dress with styled hair. Here we are, and not empty-handed. The guests walked into the hallway. Angelina poked Alex painfully in the side, who, confused, hesitated from foot to foot. He flinched and held out the bouquet to the birthday girl. "Happy birthday," said the man. "Thank you," Megan said, accepting the flowers and looking at her friends with a questioning look. "And this is Alex, meet Alex." Angelina chirped as if nothing had happened, kicking off her shoes and heading into the living room.
"This is our surprise for you," Vanessa said. "So to speak, a beau for the party."
"Come in," Alex Megan invited politely. In the center of the room stood a table covered with a tablecloth, on which plates, cutlery, and several salad bowls with appetizers were arranged. The pleasant smell of meat wafted throughout the apartment. The guests sat down at the table, and Megan put the flowers in a vase and joined them. "Alex, could you pour the wine?" she asked, handing the man a corkscrew.
He took the bottle, stared at the label, and said,
"For a holiday for such beautiful women, you need a different wine." Hey, and how did it not suit you?" Angelina giggled. "Sommelier from the heating system, damn." "This wine is semi-sweet, and I feel that it smells like meat," Alex said with a serious look. "You should serve red semi-dry with meat." "Come on, pour it," he was making sense. Angelina pushed Alex with her elbow so that he would talk less. After drinking and snacking and sitting at the table for a while, the buddies said they had to go. It was part of Angelina's plan. Megan would spend the evening alone with Alex, and tomorrow at work they would announce to her that he was a regular bum. Then they'd laugh together at her friend's reaction. She might take offense, but it was a joke, after all. Angelina was sure that no one had ever received such an original gift. "Alex, will you help us get dressed?" she asked the man. He left the table and handed Angelina his coat, and she slipped 2 $5,000 bills into his pants pocket, as promised. "Behave yourself, street child." With those words to the bum, she walked out of Megan's apartment, dragging Vanessa with her. The door slammed shut and Alex stood still. "Well, what are you doing?" "Come on in, since my friends ran away so quickly, we'll celebrate together," Megan suggested. She was a little disappointed that Patrick hadn't shown up. She wanted to see the man again, but she figured he had better things to do.
Alex poured wine into glasses again, and Megan brought French meat from the kitchen.
"What's this?" the man asked. "French meat. Why the name?" "I don't know," the birthday girl shrugged. Alex gladly took a knife and fork in his hands, deftly cut a piece, and sent it to his mouth. Very tasty, but I would add Provençal herbs to it," he said. "Why?" Megan wondered. If it's French meat, there should be Provençal herbs and basil. But it was still very good. Megan scrutinized the man she was seeing for the first time. He had a strange accent and way of speaking. "Alex, aren't you from around here?" she finally asked. "A little out of town," the man answered. "What do you mean, a little?" Megan didn't understand. I was born here, but I lived somewhere else.
I see. You eat, eat. Don't be shy.
I admit, I can't stop eating. Alex praised the woman's culinary skills. Can I have more of this salad? Sure, Megan moved the bowl closer to the man and thought that he ate a lot, as if he hadn't eaten for days, and praised the simplest salads as if he ate them for the first time. Suddenly, Alex grabbed his stomach and started to roll onto his side. "Oh, I don't feel well," he groaned. "What's wrong?" Megan jumped up to him, supporting him by the elbow, and helped him to move to the couch. "I can't breathe, ... I think I ate too much." Alex rolled his eyes and started rolling around on the couch. "Be patient. I'll call an ambulance." Megan ran for the phone, dialed 03, and called her address. Soon the EMTs arrived. Entering the room, they laid out an orange suitcase with medical supplies and examined the patient. "Let's unbutton the shirt," the doctor said.
Megan helped Alex undo the buttons, freed his chest from the blue fabric, and suddenly froze in place. At that moment, it seemed to her that the floor was moving out from under her feet, swaying up and down. The woman swayed, took a few steps back, and fell into a chair. Her eyes blurred and she lost consciousness.
Megan woke up to the pungent odor of ammonia. It hit her nose so hard that the woman shook her head, trying to find a stream of fresh air. "Woman, there's nothing wrong with the patient," said the paramedic, looking into the eyes of Megan, who had regained consciousness. "Why are you so worried? We gave him a pill, put him on a painkiller. He'll feel better soon. It's just that the man ate too much. And before that, he probably abstained from fatty and caloric food for a long time." Megan looked at the doctors and then at Alex, who was lying on her couch. The shirt on his chest was buttoned up. The woman escorted the doctors out and slowly, as if a ghost was in front of her, approached her guest. The man's eyes were closed. She leaned over him and carefully, so as not to disturb him, began to undo the top buttons of his shirt. Alex jerked, grabbed her arm. "What do you want? Why are you undressing me?" He shrieked fearfully. "Don't be afraid, please." Megan tried to calm him down. "Show me what's on your neck." Not understanding anything, Alex put his hand under his collar and pulled out a wooden pendant in the form of a horseshoe on an old cord. Tears appeared in Megan's eyes and slowly dripped onto the man's shirt. "Sam, is that you?" the woman whispered. She looked at her brother lying in front of her with all her eyes. She wanted to hug and hold him to her. But at that moment, the doorbell rang. Megan shuddered, stood up and went to open it. A smiling Patrick stood on the doorstep. He was holding a bouquet and a small box decorated with a bow. "Hello, Megan. Here I am, as I promised to wish you a happy birthday." With a confident step, he entered the hallway, handed the hostess the flowers and the gift. "Which way?" "This way," he asked, smoothing his hair. A bewildered Megan nodded her head. Patrick walked into the living room and saw a man lying on the couch with his shirt unbuttoned on his chest. He looked at Megan in surprise. "I seem to have come at a bad time. You could have just not opened the door, Megan." The man looked hurt, but Megan had already come to her senses and took his hand. "On the contrary, you're just in time, Patrick," she said quickly. "Remember when you confided in me that Lara wasn't your daughter? Now I want to tell you my story. You're the only one who can listen to me without emotion right now. Please sit down." Patrick reluctantly lowered himself into a chair next to the table set with festive dishes. Confused, sometimes confused, Megan told him that the man had been brought to her apartment by a friend. She'd never seen him before, but on his chest hung a pendant that was supposed to be worn by her younger brother who'd been missing for years. She pulled the exact same thing out of the sideboard and held it out to Paul. He looked at it, and then at the one on Alex's chest. "Where did you get it?" he asked the stranger. "My foster parents gave it to me. I wore it when I was brought to the orphanage in this town. Apparently it's all that's left of my real parents." "Alex, look, I have the exact same one." Megan held out her jewelry to him. "These two pendants my dad made with his own hands and gave them to my mom when he confessed his love to her. The day my mom disappeared, she put them on my brother and me and told us never to take them off. And then I went to an orphanage and lost my brother. I was only 5 years old at the time. If you have that pendant, you're my brother, my Sam." "Mamma mia," Alex exclaimed and started shouting something in Italian. The Megans Patricks looked at each other in surprise as they watched the man's excited behavior. Then he switched back to Russian. I knew I would find my sister. I believed I was not going to this city for nothing. For the next 2 hours, all three sat at the table and talked. Alex told his story. The half-year-old boy was quickly adopted by a wealthy farming couple from Italy. They loved their adopted son very much, took care of him, and even hired a woman to teach him Russian. When the boy grew up, they told him everything about his father who had died in a fire, his alcoholic mother, withheld only that Alex had a native older sister. His parents were very afraid that he would look for her and leave them alone, go to Russia. Over time, Alex got an education and began to help his parents in the vineyards. And a year ago, his foster mom and dad died in a car accident. After the funeral, the man discovered a box of papers. Going through them, he saw a piece of paper written in small handwriting. It was a letter from his adoptive mother, Louise, addressed to her son. In it, she told him that Alex had a sister, Megan, in Russia. Ever since then, his only dream was to find her. I arrived in this city late at night, looking for a hotel, the man said. Some driver picked me up on the street, but I didn't have any rubles and he took me to the exchange office. Before I could even get there, I got a blow on the head and blacked out. Then I woke up and some men were dragging me on the ground into the heating duct. I didn't have any money or documents on me. I see Patrick nodded. You'd just been robbed. Yes, that's right. I went to the police, but they told me to drink less alcohol. The guys who brought me in took pity on me, gave me food, treated my head wound. And then they told me I had to make money and put me in front of the mall with a hat. That's where your friends found me, Megan.
That's incredible, Megan. Patrick exclaimed. I thought it was your lover at first.
All three of them laughed merrily. Megan and Alex hugged each other. After 40 years, two people separated by thousands of kilometers had found each other again. We should drink to that, said Patrick cheerfully, pouring wine into glasses. This is the best birthday present ever, smiled Megan, holding her brother's hand. I'm so happy for you, it brings tears to my eyes, said Patrick, taking a sip of wine. Alex, I'm not the last man in this town. I have connections and money. Sam wanted to object, but Patrick made a warning gesture with his hand and continued. Let me finish, please. So, I will definitely help you to restore all your documents, and then I'll help you get a job. If you want, even in my company, I need people fluent in different languages. But Alex shook his head. Thank you, Patrick, but I'll be going back to Italy. My home is there, my vineyards, the life's work of the people who raised me and educated me. I can't just leave everything behind, and Russia is already a foreign country to me. As you know, in any case, always ask for help and just call. I will be very happy. And you should definitely come and visit me in Italy. It is a very beautiful, hospitable country. Alex answered. Patrick said goodbye to Megan and Sam, hugged both of them, even kissed them on the cheeks, completely moved by the incredible story of brother and sister. Closing the door behind him, Megan went back into the living room, pulling some pictures out of the sideboard. They hugged each other and looked at the pictures, looking at the faces of the people who had given them life many years ago. A month later, Angelina, Vanessa, and Patrick and Larochka saw Megan and Alex off on the train station platform. Vanessa had tears in her eyes, and Angelina was saying something to keep from crying. Don't forget about us. We helped you find each other. The woman gibbered.
Patrick couldn't take his eyes off Megan, as if saying goodbye to her. She had become a close friend lately, and he liked her a lot. Taking her hand, he spoke softly.
I will always look forward to seeing you. A loudspeaker announced the arrival of the train. Megan and Alex grabbed their suitcases and hurried to their carriage. Seeing the happy brother and sister boarding the train, the people seeing them off waved. Dad, do you think we'll see them again? Lara asked her father. We will see them again, he answered, hugging his daughter. He had already planned to take advantage of Alex's invitation and go to Italy together with Lenochka during the winter vacation. When the neighbor, Aunt Zoe, asked if Mary could sleep alone tonight, I had to be honest and say she couldn't. It was frightening to look at her grandmother's empty bed, and impossible not to. The silence rang around to the point of ringing in my ears. Who invented this omen to stop the clock in the house when a person dies in it? My grandmother loved her old clock, its rustling, its sound. When Grandma brought little Mary here, the The clock had been here a long time. Mary cried. The first night, Grandma sat on her bed and quietly comforted her. You see, you and I will make a good life together, like girlfriends. I have chosen the coziest corner for your bed. Doesn't the clock bother you? You hear, it soothes you. Mary quietly nudged the pendulum and cried silently. It couldn't be that Grandma was gone. When she had been told as a 6-year-old that Mommy and Daddy were dead, she hadn't believed it for a very long time. Somewhere they must be somewhere now, and therefore someday they will come. That's why she flatly refused to leave their home. She doesn't even remember why she agreed. I guess her grandmother managed to persuade her in some miraculous way. Grandma had a way of doing that. At first, Mary was still terribly afraid that she would be taken away by some of the strangers who appeared in the house after Mom and Dad disappeared. There wasn't a single evil person among them. They were just all complete strangers. She was afraid to even cry in front of them, let alone answer their questions. When they asked her something, she didn't just keep silent, but turned away just in case. That way they would get away from her faster, stop noticing her. One day some aunt pestered her. She said that tomorrow she had to go to kindergarten. Mary turned away and looked at the front door, pretending not to hear anything. Instead, Mary answered some incomprehensible nonsense from their neighbor Eveline with her purple curly head. I'll tell you honestly, I'm not surprised. This is a very spoiled girl. Her upbringing has not been seriously handled by anyone. And just at that moment the front door Mary was looking at opened, and a short, thin woman in blue jeans and white, blue flowered sneakers quietly entered, who heard everything, because she immediately answered something incomprehensible too, even though no one had time to ask her. Come on, are you such a close family friend to judge this, and even more confidently express your opinion out loud? And who are you? Violet Eveline took offense. I'm Mary's grandmother, her daddy's mom. I haven't seen you around here. Grandma. Mary shouted and rushed toward the stranger before she could think of anything, just to escape Eveline. Well, hello, honey, she heard a voice above her and warm hands stroking her hair. Right. It's her daddy's mom. She had the same kind and light hands. Daddy had said so often that Mary had the kindest and most beautiful grandmother that Mary couldn't wait to see her. She had long ago been promised to be taken far away to another town to visit her grandmother. And now Grandma had come herself and turned out to be just that. Papa had never lied. After getting to know her grandmother, Mary immediately stopped being afraid of all the terrible fears. It turned out that she and her grandmother had no one but each other. Mary was overjoyed when she learned that it would be just the two of them. It's so nice that it's just you and me, Grandma. No strangers. Grandpa would have loved you very much too. You can be sure of that, Grandma smiled. She wasn't very happy that it was just the two of them with Mary. There were many pictures of Grandpa in the house, but all in albums and only one on the wall. On it, a young dark-haired uncle, cheerful and strong, sat in a boat, and on his lap held a little boy, a little older than Mary. The boy was very serious, frowning and gripping the oars tightly. Mary immediately recognized that this boy was her daddy. They had pictures of him as a child at home, too. Grandma said here they were fishing. It had been some very fishy summer, and they had had a terrific vacation. And in the early fall, 2 days after returning from vacation, Grandpa was killed in the line of duty. Little Mary was afraid to ask what that execution was, and her grandmother didn't explain. Further family history, sad but in some ways also beautiful, grandmother revealed to the growing up Mary later. Her dad grew up and went to Dallas to study. To her mom's joy and relief, he had absolutely no desire to follow in his father's footsteps, no attraction to any dangerous service, and simply enrolled as a project engineer. Thoughtful and focused Henry was very suitable for this specialty. Everyone around him thought so too. No one expected any adventures from the guy, but he did. He fell in love with a girl from a wealthy family. And he didn't just fall in love for a while, he really fell in love. Everything about him was like that. Both her mother and stepfather were sure that sooner or later she would marry the son of a family friend with whom her stepfather had a business partnership. The lad was indeed very shallow, educated in London, had returned, and was making a significant contribution to his father's business. He was in his late 30s, financially well off. Why not get married? Mom and stepfather at first quietly. Then more and more frankly and firmly began to push student Emma to a profitable, prosperous marriage. At first she joked, perhaps too carefully and for a long time, so that the family had time to realize that her refusal not the whim of a spoiled princess. But the time had come to speak seriously. Emma inhaled a little audibly, exhaled noisily and announced, "The thing is, I have another fiancé." "Who is he?" Tum Nomno asked Mom, secretly hoping that the beautiful daughter went to her and knows how to find the best of the possible. And Mom was disappointed, extremely disappointed. The groom turned out to be a young engineer, yesterday's graduate of the institute, found a job in a simple construction firm. Everything would be all right, but the groom's mother is the widow of some provincial policeman. And so for this almost rustic, shabby boy, his mother raised Emma her own. Emma with clear skin, a black profile and soft green almond-shaped eyes. Love. But I had it too. I loved your daddy when I married him, who got involved in an obscure project and left me and you penniless. If it wasn't for Jimmy, you'd have grown up in the slums. That's how Mom greeted her daughter's news. Jimmy himself, Mama's husband and benefactor, was brief. "You will marry our friend. We have long agreed." Mom was afraid of his weighty statements, but Emma somehow not. She married her Henry, and her parents fulfilled their promise. They cut her out of the family. Especially since they had another girl growing up, little Helga. Their shared daughter with her stepfather was surely more fortunate and promising than this one, who had inherited from her father. Grandmother Mary said, "I am passing on to you as your mother told me." I add nothing of my own. If you want, you can always look up your mother's side of the family. I once thought it was wrong that they weren't told of your birth. But when your parents died, my matchmakers were notified, just knowing about it just in case. And you decide for yourself. There was nothing to decide. No one had come for Mary except Grandma Ann, so she had no relatives anymore. Now Grandma App is gone, so no one at all. All alone in the whole wide world. Anthony was very supportive. "You have to move on, not mourn endlessly," so he consoled the girl and convinced her to go to Chicago. What's there to catch? He's a car mechanic, a beginner, but a good one, with excellent references. If Mary rented their apartment with his grandmother, and he added his savings, and then quickly got a job, they could easily rent a small apartment in a residential neighborhood and still have something left over to live on. Remember, I told you about my ideas before, but you were so afraid to leave your grandmother, as if you were glued to her. And now there's nothing keeping you here. There was nothing holding Mary back now. She wouldn't dare go alone to a strange, unfamiliar city. But Chicago was her mom's hometown. Plus, she'd have Anthony around to keep her company. Aunt Zoe shook her head. "Oh, I don't know. Sure, I'll help rent out the apartment. I'll supervise the tenants. But it's so little, barely enough for a room in St. Petersburg. Life prices are different there, everything. You're just out of college, you have no experience. It'll take you a while to find a job. And live on what? At least here you're at home. And I'll always have a bowl of soup for you if you need it. It's just the two of us. Anthony has thought of everything, made some savings, and he'll find a job with his qualifications right away. We'll certainly live no worse than here. He understands that at first it's all up to him." Aunt Zoe waved her hand back and forth. She got up from her chair, walked around the room, silently, and said, "Your business, grandmother's apartment, is yours alone. And in that sense, there is nothing to be afraid of. But I do not like these fashionable marriages without painting. It's old-fashioned. This is for guys as good and convenient. All these will live and see. Something doesn't suit us, we'll run away and share nothing. You can live with a new one every year. And for us girls, what good is that? Not a wife, not a bride. It's just a trial, temporary. And what hope is there for such a husband? Well, if only he had settled in the city, created, as they call it, a base, and then dragged you with him. But no, he decided to stick to his grandmother's apartment, to make his life easier. And maybe it would be good for you here. You have your own place anyway. And we are all our own. And Grandma Ann would probably say the same thing. You know as well as I do, at the tactless mention of grandmother, one might have taken offense, but Mary took no offense. Grandma would have understood, she replied with conviction. Of course Grandma Ann would understand. She understood a lot more about relationships than the rest of the grown-up aunts. Mary somehow knew that for sure. The other thing was that if Grandma had been alive, Mary wouldn't have dared to move so far away from her. and now it didn't matter anymore. It was as if the stars had taken to helping Mary and Anthony. Surprisingly, quite quickly found decent tenants for a long time, a young couple with a baby. Mary prepared in advance, disassembled and neatly stacked grandmother's wrinkled things, gave them to Aunt Zoya for storage. She took only her watch with her. "It's so bulky. Why do you have to bring it with you?" Anthony wondered. "I'll hang it in our rented apartment so I can have something of my own. Well, if that's the way you want it, let it be," Anthony agreed generously. In Chicago, too, everything worked out as planned. We quickly found both an apartment for the right price and a job for Anthony. True, the apartment was very cramped and nowhere further from the subway, and the job was on the opposite side of town. But that's not a big deal if you don't pick on the little things. Mary put things on the shelves in the closet and hung the grandmother's clock on the wall. Walked around the store at home, made some soup, and sat down at her laptop. She had to look for a job, too. Of course, she has no experience, but in college she took first places in hairdressing, creative competitions. And she has diplomas, and she agrees to the most modest salary, if only there was an opportunity to gain experience. Coming from work, Anthony several days in a row forced the same picture: a clean apartment, dinner on the stove. A focused Mary sending out her resume to salons. Anthony was staunchly against Mary working. He said that if they were saving money, they had enough, and in case of emergency, she could just raise the rent to her tenants. Summer came, and Anthony's conviction that there was no reason for her to work came in handy. Although it was a cool, windy summer with frequent rain, it was still a beautiful summer. The city no longer seemed unprincipled and gray to Mary when there was thick shade, clean greenery in the parks. One day Mary went to the museum and did not notice how she spent 3 hours there. She told Anthony at home over dinner and suggested, "Let's go together again this weekend. I didn't have time to see and memorize everything there, and then we'll go somewhere else." "Why did we come here if we can't see anything? We're here to make money. We didn't come here to spend." Anthony explained condescendingly. "I can see it all later if I want to." Anthony was working hard and saving money for some important plans, which he promised to tell me about later. A neighbor on the floor, Helen, with whom Mary had become friendly, thought Mary was lucky to have Anthony. "You know how infantile guys are nowadays. You've got a hard-working guy. Take my Jack, for instance. We already have Bruno for 2 years. For my husband, the main thing is his friends, his company. Friends are the center of the world. They always need to throw themselves in, help at the first call. And it doesn't matter that his wife had other plans. She's not bored with the baby either. A son is always fun. They're all selfish. Most of them are. So you're still an okay option. Although you're pretty, you could do better finding someone to take you around. But I don't think so. So yes, your option is very good." Mary felt uncomfortable after Helene's words about the options, even if she didn't feel comfortable saying that she was missing something. She had a completely different idea of their life in Chicago. It seemed to her that they had been together for 100 years and Anthony had stopped loving her truly like he used to. He comes home from work tired, often irritated over nothing, collapses on the sofa waiting for food, and looks at Mary as something that always was, is, and will be. Like the central heating radiators, for example. It's true that he changes at night, especially before the weekend. Remembers that there are affectionate words. Promises that he will definitely think of something interesting for the vacation. It's probably just fatigue and worry. Will he be able to achieve something in a foreign city, in a megalopolis? Of course, it's hard to get accustomed here. Still, it's a lot of work for two. Everything is getting more expensive so soon, and the landlord is hinting at a pay rise. We'll have to find a job after all. At first, Anthony will grumble, but then he'll realize that it's better this way. And he won't have time to be bored and think of all sorts of silly things. And it will be interesting, because a hairdresser is a man of art, no matter how much his lover giggles at it. Mary thought, consulted, and decided to try a different job search tactic. Nothing gives nothing to go sending out resumes listing prize-winning children's contests from college when there is no experience at all. Probably at the same time 1,000s of the same girls are sending out 1,000s of resumes. Helen advised her to go through the salons herself, in person. And Mary, barely waiting for Anthony to leave for work, went looking for happiness. There were plenty of salons and establishments under the modest sign hairdressers even in walking distance. 4 salons did not show the slightest interest in her, but in a tiny, modest, semi-basement under the glamorous name of orchid-bored brunette. After a short survey, Mary revived. She complained to her guests that her shiftmate was constantly missing work, causing the salon's operations to be disrupted, and promised to tell the owner of the establishment about her. "I can tell by you that you are different. If I put a question to the owner or me or Helga, he will ask her, because he knows very well who is worth what here. He doesn't pay much, so he doesn't have the nerve to expect a supermaster. Our contingent is also local. The same grandmothers and aunts for years. The demands are not very fancy. I bet you've been training on the same neighbors from home. Yeah, well, nothing unexpected. Leave a phone number. I'll call you when I come over. Introduce myself to our dentist. My name." I promised to get him ready. Mary liked Kristen, and the reassurance reassured her. But for some reason, the air in the semi-basement room seemed somehow musty, sickly sweet, dizzy and nauseous under her throat. She said goodbye politely and hurried outside, where she barely made it to the far corner of the house before vomiting into the grass. It became a little Pandrucci, but suddenly there was an incomprehensible weakness, as if all the strength suddenly somewhere in an instant went away. Mary was even a little frightened and decided not to go home, but first to Helen to tell her the news. She was happy for her, but marveled at her pallor. Helen shook her head thoughtfully. "I don't want to scare you. It's better to just test right away and rule out the assumption. I have a test lying around somewhere in my medicine cabinet." "What kind of test?" "I don't get it, Mary." "Are you 100% sure you can't be pregnant?" "Then I'm jealous." Helen waved her hands. "Do you think we're from the middle of nowhere?" Mary smiled. "Of course we're using protection." "Aha. I believe every word you say," Helen nodded. "When people tell me how handsome Bruno is, I say, what do you want? It's electronically verified. We planned for later, 5 years from now. But he did it his way. Here I found a test, and don't think about all the horrible things beforehand. Maybe there's nothing. Or maybe there is, but everything will be fine." Why hadn't she thought to ask Helen how best to break the news? Hinting is kind of silly. It's got to be direct. Only at the right moment, not on the doorstep, but when Anthony had eaten dinner and was resting a little. Mary waited until nightfall. And when the lights went out, she whispered in a half-whisper, "Anthony, I'm pregnant." "Are you sure?" "The smells in the barbershop made me sick. Helen gave me a test and it showed 2 stripes." "You're not kidding, are you?" Anthony stretched out peacefully. "You know I don't recognize such stupid jokes." "I'm serious. Helen told me that their Bruno showed up the same way, despite the measures. It's not that uncommon. No method can be completely, 100% trusted." Mary didn't know what to say next. She fell silent, and there was silence. Only her grandmother's clock ticked on the wall. Why was Anthony silent too? Is he gathering his thoughts? Now he would hug her, say, "Don't be afraid, we'll raise the child." I found the problem. I'll solve it. It must have been half an hour before Mary decided to speak again. "Anthony, I'm scared when you don't say anything. I don't want to say it's your fault. So why don't you go to the doctor tomorrow and find out how much it costs to get it out quickly? And I'll give you whatever you need from my savings." She heard some completely alien voice. Mary reached a shivering and frozen hand over her head, fumbled for the switch on the wall sconce, and turned on the light, as if she wanted to make sure it was her Anthony. It was him. And he shaded himself from the light with his hand. "Well, what else have you decided to do to me?" "Well, you're not hysterical. Are you going to tell me you want a baby?" "But that's nonsense. Why do we need one? Especially now." Mary tried to catch his eye, but he warded it off with the palm of his hand and curved his mouth unhappily. Her ability to speak suddenly returned to her. "I didn't want anyone, because I didn't think about it. I can't abort. If there's already a child, I'll love it. My grandmother told me that my father was happy when he found out I was coming. Although he and my mom didn't have anything at the time, he just loved her very much. So he loved their baby right away. I mean me. Of course, your dad's the noble knight and I'm the scoundrel. Did you ever think that he hoped to make peace with his rich wife's family by having a child? No, That's life, baby. Mary silently slipped her feet into her flip-flops, went into the kitchen and cried, resting her head on the table. Whether her daddy was counting on it or not, he still couldn't say, "Put that away quickly, Dot." She knows he couldn't. She used to carry a small photograph of him behind the cover of her passport. There Henry and Emma are squatting, holding the handles on both sides of a tiny girl in a crimson jumpsuit. "Stop whimpering," she heard a good-natured voice above her. "Go to sleep tomorrow. If you are afraid yourself, I'll take you to the doctor." "Well, I'm sorry about that. Soon you won't even remember it." "I'm not getting rid of the baby." "Of course you're in favor of creating poverty. I could have guessed that when you were picking up stray cats with kittens." "Only I'm not a stray." Mary interrupted him quietly. "Look, let's you sleep, calm down, and in the morning we'll talk intelligently. I'm at work tired as a dog, and here at home Brazilian series. If you want to talk without drama, call me." Mary watched in silence as Anthony raked the shelves without looking and threw his underwear and clothes into a gym bag. "Don't worry, he'll play free wolf, cool down and come back. He'll ask for forgiveness. The main thing is to pretend that you are mortally offended and convinced that you'll get along just fine without him," Helen exhorted and admonished Magga. "I don't need to pretend I'll get along just fine without him. If not fine, then terrible. I'll still have to get along somehow," Dot grimly assured Mary. "Well, what are you getting down about?" Helen continued to comfort her, not very confidently. Mary interrupted her. "I'm sorry, you're the best. But you don't need any of this. He doesn't need me. I saw it last night. I don't know why I didn't see it before. No, when I was handy, he needed me. Aunt Zoe was right. If I didn't have the money from my grandmother's rent, he wouldn't have brought me here. He would have left alone, promised to come back for me, and disappeared. He's so-and-so is gone now, Dot." Mary could not stand it and burst into tears again, crying and angry with herself for crying, for not being able to linger. It was as if Helen had read her mind. "That's right. Don't be shy with me. Cry as much as you need to so we'll calm down faster. I know what I'm talking about. We fools believe we're loved, that they'll take care of us. Sometimes we're lucky not to be wrong, and often we're not, Dot." Anthony did not return. Calming down, if you could call her quiet, confused state that, Mary considered and realized there were no things left in the apartment for him to come back for. All the little things they had managed to buy in the household mattered only to Mary herself. Anthony had taken his clothes. Was he so afraid of a child that he was willing to sacrifice his comfort to live with a single friend? Mary endured a week and finally dialed his number. "The subscriber's phone is switched off or out of range, Dot. Maybe we should go see him at work after all," Helen reasoned aloud, to whom the confusion had passed. "Do you want me to ask Jack? He won't say no. He's such a chatterbox. It's not hard for him to talk man to man." "Find out at least how your Anthony is in tune." Magus raised her eyes to her. She'd lost weight, her face was drained, and her anxious green-brown eyes seemed huge on him. "Maybe he's not sure yet. Do you know how cowardly they really are?" "Yeah," Mary smiled, strained. "I'm all out of money. I've gotten into an untouchable transfer from my grandmother's apartment, which I'm using to pay for this place. If I gobble up that money, I won't have anything to pay the landlord here very soon. Next month already. And Anthony knows how the money is, and he doesn't care. What have you and the baby decided?" Helen asked cautiously. "I don't know what to decide. I'd feed myself, no question, but the baby, how? What are we going to live on when he's born and I can't work yet? I have no one. I don't even have anyone to come to ask to babysit while I work, and I can't get rid of him. Don't look at me like that, I can't, that's all. I think it would be even worse then than it is now." Helen walked around the kitchen, looked in the spice jars for some reason and said, "If your creep doesn't show up, you can always go home. At least there's all those aunts there who were friends with your grandmother there to help you out. But it's a last resort to go back without a dime. You've got a very short time. You could get a job here in Chicago. Ideally an official one, of course, with maternity leave and everything. Employers don't like that. When it's all clear, they say you got the job on purpose. But they have their own truth, you have your own. You need to live, and they don't care. But with your profession and no experience, it may not work out that way. So you've got to have something to fall back on. I'll always buy you a meal and feed you. If you don't spend your paycheck, Save up some money here and go back to your town with a little money for the first time. Or maybe you'll be lucky enough to find something decent. Then you can stay in Chicago any way you want. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'd do if I were you. Work first, and then we'll see. Mary thought she would too. As soon as she did, her cell phone rang half an hour later. It was Kristen from the Orchid. Mary, hi. Look, I won't tell you over the phone, but I think I have something for you. Our dentist wants to take a look at you. He said he'd be at the dealership by 3 this afternoon, so come on over. You want your papers? I doubt he'll be looking at your papers right away. Well, take your passport just in case. I have no idea what he'll think of our unpredictable. It's a good thing she's not nauseous today, and she looks pretty good. She'd washed her hair, carefully painted her eyes, put on the newest of her weekday dresses, and even slipped into heeled sandals, though she usually ran in more comfortable shoes. By 3 o'clock, she was at the salon. The director had to wait another half hour. Mary was having coffee with Rita and a customer from the next doorway, a bright, fresh, red-haired, cheerful lady. The bosses aren't late, the bosses are late, girls, the lady announced, wiggling funny. She entertained Mary and Kristen with funny life stories, and the wait was neither anxious nor boring. But when the principal did arrive, the hilarious client quickly said goodbye and left. Kristen, instead of mouthing off, you might want to clean this place up for once. Not a quick sweep, but a decent one. I can't believe you don't have time. I can see from your receipts that you have time. This, he said from the doorstep, without anger, with lazy irritation instead of greeting. The director turned out to be a dense, stocky middle-aged man in a bright Hawaiian shirt that was tight on his stomach. Have a cheerful outlook on life, Dennis. Something wrong. Just yesterday I was, smart girl, Kristen sang out. Is this the girl you were telling me about? Dennis changed the subject. Yes, this is Mary, a certified hairdresser with credentials, certificates. Let's give it a try. This girl really needs a job. She's just dying to work. She won't ask for time off. Isn't that right, Mary? Yes, Mary said, trying to be convincing. With a friendly glance at Mary, Dennis chuckled. But the thing is, I don't need another hairdresser. I'd try to get an experienced one, if she's any better than Oli. I won't mess with you, so why did you ask me to come? Mary asked, confused. Kristen gave you a lot of praise. I just wanted to see if you'd like to come. I have a restaurant in addition to this place. Now I need another waitress. Cute and smart, the girl accepted the offer, because even seasonal work is a waitress, but not in the specialty, better than nothing. And so before Mary knew it, she was already working in the Café Violet for the 4th week. Yes, Dennis and his companion Pablo had such a taste for names. The institution was located in the same semi-basement room as the Orchid, but the area was larger. There was 1 cook and an assistant and 2 waitresses per shift. One of the girls had recently graduated and decided to change the job she had held onto while she was a student. Mary was hired in her place. The restaurant was quite cozy, frequented, inexpensive, and the place was quite busy. And the food was good. And one more plus at work, they fed, of course, not the same as the clients, but cheaper and simpler pasta or potatoes with meat, sticky wiener, or chicken leg. At first, Mary was very happy she wouldn't have to spend money on food on weekdays, saving money again. But more and more often, there were days when every trip to the kitchen for an order became a feat for her. The mere smell of food made her sick. Mary worked in shifts 2 days and 2 days from 11 to 23. And you could never guess in the morning how the shift would go. You would fly from morning till evening and chew cabbage, carrots, and apples all day, or barely crawl, holding onto the wall and trying not to look at the food, coming to the kitchen for an order. The doctor at the women's clinic, where Mary was registered under temporary registration, explained that she has toxicosis, and so often happens. In general, it's nothing terrible, soon it should pass. I wish it would pass soon. Moshet nenormal inyi kukoitu. Nedoverchivo pravala ego Helen. When Ben's cook changes, Mary is calmer. He doesn't notice anything. He doesn't understand it. Like all guys, he thinks it's not much. The girl didn't sleep well. And the cook, Kristen, looks suspiciously, as if she had guessed everything long ago. Mary tried not to think about it, remembering Helen's admonition. You need to take care of your nerves now, or you'll have a lot of trouble later with a nervous child. It's just a job. You've done it, and you're off. You don't care what anyone thinks. Helen herself knew how to do that. She recently came back to work from maternity leave, returned to her accounting department, and told about the naggingly picky chief accountant with laughter, without resentment and worry. Maybe it was a good thing that heat was a rarity in Chicago. It felt heavy with the humidity here. Or was it just Mary who thought so now? But one day on the shift, it got unbearable. Nothing. It would soon be over. She ran into the locker room, behind which was the bathroom, pulled the door open, undid the top 2 buttons of her white work blouse so it wouldn't get dirty. When she was about to get up and go into the hall, she heard behind her back, "Don't make any sudden movements, girl. There are only 2 tables. The waitress will manage without you. Let's make peppermint tea. It helps. I've got a lot of mint growing in my cottage. I'll give it to you at home if you want it. Ginger tea helps with that too, and you should eat more often and sleep more. I've had 2, I know." Kristen looked at Mary without mockery, but without pity, with calm understanding and sympathy. For some reason, Mary felt not scared, but much relieved that she did know. In 10 minutes in the kitchen, while drinking mint tea, she told the cook her whole story. "Svet, are you going to take the groceries?" Pavel inquired behind her back. Mary even forgot that she felt sick and realized with sober horror that Paul could hear their conversation. This companion, Dennis, young, thin, and silent, frightened her very much for some reason unpleasant, always comes unheard, such as his gait. With cooks still sometimes greets, even something else will say. The waitresses in general are like furniture to him. They never even dignify him with a word. Mary jumped up at his discovery and happily clung to the elbow of her colleague who appeared in the kitchen. Oops, in the evening Dennis arrived in yet another Hawaiian shirt and with a particularly heavy odor of booze for Mary. He regarded the girl squeamishly and tiredly and held out an envelope. "Payment is yours for the month. Check it out, it's honest. You don't work anymore. Why?" Mary asked with barely moving lips. How insolent modern girls are, especially those from the periphery like you. What makes you think you have the right to lie and set someone up if you had the foolishness to get pregnant? Something will happen to you at work, and you will go to some labor inspectorate and tell how the bastard director did not register you for work, exploited you, and you will be tired of demanding maternity money. I will not scold you and scare you so that you do not immediately faint me. I'm just asking you to be quiet for now and not try to pull something like that. He was almost friendly, without any anger. A smooth, lazy voice. Mary had a lot of things she wanted to say, but kept quiet. She wanted to toss him his money, but silently took the envelope. It would come in handy. It wasn't even for her. The next day, Mary slept most of the day. She woke up twice, drank strong tea in the kitchen, and went back to bed. Nothing wanted to do, nothing to think about. It was as if a dark curtain had fallen over her eyes. And in the evening, Helen rang the doorbell. "Come to our place. Jack is calling you himself. He wants to tell you something." "He didn't send it through me," Helen announced. Jack was sitting in the kitchen, finishing his soup from a deep basin-like bowl. "Mary, I found out something for you. Maybe it'll be good for you. A buddy of mine, Andrew, is a decorator. He recently renovated a private house in the suburbs for a grandfather. The grandfather's house is fine, but he lives alone. He penetrated. He sees that he's a normal, honest kid, and shared that he would rent one room to a woman for the usual household help, and that she was to him as a companion, so even for free. There are all sorts of errands and talk. That's the deal. A favor for a favor. His living conditions are very good. He's not picky about cleaning, cooking. That's what he told me." Andrew says, "Exactly a normal, proper grandfather. Just alone and with money. He says he can always get it through an agency, but he doesn't trust them very much. That's why he asks all his good friends for a recommendation. I thought of you right away." "Lying again?" Mary asked tiredly. Suddenly a good man, he expects a quiet old age. And I'm here at him bang and suddenly have a baby. And if I find a job again, how will I have time to do his errands? Then you'll have to pay for the room like you're supposed to. Let's Andrew tell him honestly that this is your situation. That's probably the right thing to do. Let him decide for himself." Mary nodded. Even Jack wanted to help her. She'd thought he hated her for being around a lot. That didn't make sense. "I don't think it's going to work out, but you have to say thank you and pretend you're hopeful." So she did. Jack went to his Andrew. Helen exhaled noisily and suggested, "Let's have some cherry pie for the night." If you really want it, you can have it once. Go and have a look, you've got nothing to lose. Just take a good look at the landlord. Cunning, of course, the old man, instead of hiring a housekeeper for a salary, is looking for a lodger who will perform the same duties for a room. Don't be shy, just ask directly what exactly you'll have to do. Maybe there's a lot of work involved and it's easier to rent a room for money than do it all every day. To be honest, I couldn't do it. There are 1,000,000 reasons to pick on you, but you still have to see it. On his first day off, Jack took Mary to meet his grandfather, who was renting out a room. According to him, the grandfather was not at all confused by Mary's story. He didn't even ask anything. Helen planned to contact her husband and her friend, thinking of a good excuse to take a walk with the child in the countryside. But Bruno was sick and cranky, and they didn't have time for a walk. Mary imagined for some reason a big wooden house in a clearing like merchants' estates from movies about old life. But the house turned out to be brick, also faced with stone without any flash, but very stylish and beautiful. It was surrounded by a small garden, a few apple and cherry trees without a trace of beds and flower beds. This and through the fence could be seen at once. The fence was not a blank brick wall, but a cunning metal one. The graceful gate was ajar, but Jack was too shy to enter and called on his cell phone. "I've got a girl Mary here to see a room. "Oh, well, let's go inside," Mary dot as they walked down the stone-paved path. They approached the house. The front door opened, and on the threshold appeared the owner himself, holding a large and very shaggy white dog by the collar. From beneath his bangs he scrutinized Magoo and Jack. To realize that the owner was already well over 70, one had to look carefully at his face. Covered with a grid of wrinkles, were deep and sharp, were thinner and smaller. His gaze was quick and sharp, not senile. But its rays softened the wrinkle of his eyes. Not evil, Mary exhaled quietly. And if you didn't look at the face, there's no way you'd think the man was an old man by now. His posture was that of a middle-aged man. With a gaunt figure, there was no hint of decrepitude. Perfectly gray silver hair was cut very short, and a neat beard. In the same way, Gregory invited them into the house. So respectable on the outside, the house was cozy, but a little unusual on the inside. Of course, it was obvious from the many signs that a woman's hand had not been here for a long time, though the owner obviously kept the house in order. But the main thing was that it was as if several different times had gathered in the house. So different was the furniture, even the bedspreads and curtains. In the spacious hallway on the first floor of the XXI century, and in the living room, as if the 19th. It was clear even to Mary that the furniture was antique. She realized it must be rude to stare at everything so intently. Jack, at his host's suggestion, sat down on the edge of the guest sofa and kept modestly quiet. "Do you want to see your room at once, Mary?" asked Gregory. "Have you already decided that I'm the right tenant for you?" Mary was surprised and confused. "Have you already decided that I'm not suitable for you?" laughed the owner. "Don't be so quick to judge. Let's see the room. It's right here on the first floor. I myself dine on the second floor. There's a study and a bedroom. The rest of the space is abandoned. It's just an old archive that's piled up. I've been sorting through it, but it's a little light. If you'd like to keep me company, I'd be sincerely grateful. Of course, if you're interested." "Come in, Mary." A square room overlooking a window into a cozy corner of the garden. It seemed very warm and cozy, though of the furniture there was only an old, empty chest of drawers, a small table with a mirror, and a bed. "We'll find a closet for the outfits," assured the landlord. "The curtains, if you don't like them, change them. The main thing is not to tear down the load-bearing walls, and the rest is all negotiable, solvable. I like the room. You just tell me about all your conditions at once in detail. You said you're renting out the place for household help, and I want to know what will be my duties. I'm conscientious. But you know I have some difficulties." "What a businesslike girl you are," smiled the owner. "Your difficulties, as you put it, do not interfere with me. It may sound strange what I'm going to tell you, but try to understand. I know you have no one. I don't have anyone either. I could hire myself a housekeeper pro and have hired more, but I don't want an uncomfortable stranger professional servant person in the house. I don't have a need for the house to be perfectly cleaned, like for a magazine. And I need to be serviced like a luxury hotel. I need a live person in the house. I like you a lot. I don't like all people. No bigotry in the house. It's all the same. What would you do if I were your dad or grandfather living under the same roof as you? A little bit at a time, depending on your mood. Lest you doubt it, this isn't charity. This kind of work is worth about the price of a house. If you can help with the archives, that would be the most wonderful thing. I'll pay you like a secretary for that. Mary had a very different idea of what it would be like to talk to the landlord. It seemed suspicious that everything was going so well. Well, she'll probably find out the pitfalls later. When can we move in? If your friend Constantine will agree to drive back and forth for your things, then even today go. I'll give you money to stop by. Buy us something for dinner to celebrate the housewarming. Yes, I'll cook dinner, Mary promised. Let's go ask Jack. It turns out that the archive is not dusty and boring, does not make you sleepy. Documents a very interesting thing, as if reading a script. Only it was all real, especially the diaries. They're like living, like magical books, when there were no computers and not everyone had a typewriter, and only at work people just wrote down their thoughts with a pen on paper, and life itself was no easier than it is now. As Gregory said, no, there are a lot of good things now, but it would be better if the old good things stayed. It was very interesting with him in general. Helen was worried that Mary was bored with her old grandfather and asked her to come and visit them more often on weekends. Mary was happy to come and walked around town with her a couple times. And then she was just as happy to come back. "Oh, okay, my bunnies, I have to go home," she said last Saturday and was surprised herself. She already thought of this house and the little room in it as her real home, the one she had lived in long ago, and it was as if Granny's clock had always hung on the wall opposite her bed where Gregory had hung it. Not picking on you, Grandpa? Well, about the variety of the menu, or that you put things in the wrong place when cleaning, that you're not neat enough or lazy. What kind of complaints can a grandfather have? Probably like my Jack, only twice as much because of age. To be honest, it's hard for me to imagine Gregory as a picky old man. Mary laughed. As it happens, I don't do anything heavy at all. Just basic stuff, the same stuff I did when I lived with my grandmother. Dinner, simple cleaning. And Gregory takes away my cleaning supplies. If he thinks I should be tired by now, he always spoils me with goodies. He says he bought it for himself, but he barely touches it. Helen, he's an atypical grandfather. There was such a story. There lived a regular old, honored professor, invented various innovations for the Soviet industry and for the military. And he had two favorite students, both of whom had been working with him for many years. And shortly before the 90s, he started some serious project and was very hopeful of advancing it. One of his students worked with him on the technical part of the project, and the other one, who was more persuasive and dodgy, ran through all kinds of authorities to get funding, or some permits. For me, these technical scientific work's just a dark forest. I only realized one thing about them: they are very long, and the result is not always as you expect. And so, while these companions were working, the funding ran out and the country was in crisis. Soon there will be nothing to eat. It is unclear who will pay for the work, in general, even if you take everything valuable from home to the pawn shop. And when everything was ready, one of the apprentice companions disappeared. The one with the punching bag, Helen guessed, took all the developments with him and took off. That's what it was all about. Yeah, that's what it was. He left, patented an invention there, in another country, and provided for himself and his children for the rest of his life. And the professor almost had a stroke. He was ill for a long time, barely survived, and when he got back on his feet, his wife also took him to France, persuaded him. She had a close relative living there and married very well. The other student stayed here in Chicago. At first he thought he'd get drunk, but then somehow it all worked out. Talent, it finds a loophole. He met the right businessman, but a very smart one. He began to work for this man, a whole production to him, thought out, and earned good money back in the 90s, and then also received an inheritance from France. It turns out that his favorite friend, a professor, still managed to work there, but for himself. And the professor had no children. He wrote such a will: half of the property to his wife, half to his student and colleague Gregory, where I live. On this old archive, which we're going through now, is the professor's. Gregory carried it around with him everywhere, since he was left his surname as well. The antique furniture was left to him. The professor and his wife could have sold it before they left. It's not cheap, but the professor wanted to leave at least something valuable as a memento of himself to his student. He felt he'd let him down with his earnings and recognition. So when Gregory bought the house, he moved everything in, and now he lives surrounded by those memories. He wants to dismantle the archive, like he owes it to his teacher that someone here remembers him. Listen, why is your Gregory? If there are no heirs around such a wealthy grandfather, then there really is no one. There's something wrong with him, if no auntie's taken him in. He doesn't mention that at all. I don't ask. Maybe if he asked me something personal, I'd ask him, but he doesn't ask me either. I think he's embarrassed. He's so well-bred that he doesn't pry into other people's business. Yes, intellectuals are complicated, Helen confirmed with a knowing look, as if she talked to professors every day. Although, maybe, on the contrary, it's easier to live like that, if all these rules are observed. I won't make predictions, so as not to jinx it, but so far you seem to be lucky. You even look better, even though you're digging in dusty archives. Listen, I'm not intellectual, I'll ask you. Have you heard from Anthony? Helen, I'd be the first to tell you. I have no one in Chicago but you, Jack, and Gregory. Gregory rarely forgets anything, and now he's volunteered to help Mary peel apples for Helen. And it turns out he left his glasses in the office, probably on the desk or on the keyboard of his laptop. I'll be right there. Come on, I'll run in myself. I want to run up the stairs. Mary had only been in the office a few times. It was Gregory's diocese, as he put it, and he tidied it himself, leaving it a comfortable mess, not without logic. Occasionally he'd do a little rearrangement, swapping books on the shelves or statuettes from desk to floor and back again. Now on his antique desk next to his laptop, in addition to his glasses, there was a chessboard with Jask chess and a small photograph in a thin wooden frame. Mary hadn't noticed any pictures in the study before, at least not in any visible places.in, the black and white amateur photo. A little girl with 2 ponytails on top of her head is lying on the sand in the surf, laughing and hugging a large striped inflatable ball. Mary remembers every detail of this photo very well. She has the same one in her backpack, in the same folder with her passport, diploma, and several expensive photos. Gregory, the photo of the girl at sea, where did you get it? Mary asked, forgetting her shyness as soon as she went down to the kitchen and handed the landlord her glasses. I took this photo. I was into photography, replied Gregory, looking anxiously into Mary's face as if listening to her strange mood. That's my daughter, Emma Dot. I carry the same picture with me. It came here with me. That's my mom, Emma. Had he found his daughter in time, there would have been someone to support her when her mother turned her away, because his Emma had chosen an unfavorable husband, and his granddaughter, Mary, would have had someone to support, and his son-in-law. Maybe her only real grandmother would still be alive, if her heart had paid for serious treatment. But history does not bear the subjunctive mood. As his teacher and colleague used to say, now we have to live on and live a long time, because soon there will be another tenant in the house, who will have to be taken care of for a long time, until he can take care of himself. And it is easy and pleasant to live long, easy and pleasant when you have someone to live for. Helen's voice was tense, and she hadn't called in the evening as usual, but on her lunch hour. Mary, would you mind if I popped straight over to your place after work today? Oh, nothing's wrong, everything's fine. Just in the mood to see you and chat. There's some little things I need to tell you. Yeah, come over, of course. Especially since Grandpa's going to a class reunion at the Institute, and he's worried about us being alone for so long. What if we need something in his absence, and he's not here? I'll at least reassure him that we won't miss him. Oh, great. Considering all the traffic, I'll be at your place by 8 p.m., Helen promised. Mary sent Grandpa off in a wet asphalt-colored suit, tied his tie, approved of his gentlemanly image, and escorted him to the meeting. She waved a long time after the cab. When she returned to the house, she dressed Emma and went out into the garden with her. In the far sunny corner under an apple tree, unnoticeable from the road, they had set up a real nest. There the grandfather had hung a baby cocoon for Emma. It seemed to Mary that her daughter loved to lie there and watch the sun bunnies playing in the apple leaves. She hummed something softly and amusingly in her own language, and then fell asleep and slept soundly. Whatever sounds came from the road, the clever dog, who knew not to bark now, sat nearby and just breathed noisily. There too, at arm's length, stood a small, elegant garden table, and 2 armchairs. She's going to have a beautiful voice, Grandpa laughed in a whisper, raising his index finger to the sky. And she didn't go to the opera, an operetta for nothing. When the city and nature became somehow especially dreary in October, Grandpa came up with an entertainment for Mary. What kind of theaters did she like? Mary didn't know which ones, or if she liked them at all. I somehow have not had to be in them yet, she admitted without shyness. We had nothing in our town but the House of Culture. And here I haven't had time. They used to bring some plays there sometimes, but I was never particularly interested in it.ic. What would have been interesting? Grandpa kept up. I like music, Mary confessed, not electronic for disco, but beautiful music that is good for thinking or remembering something. And the grandfather took a season ticket to the theater, and he so fascinated Mary that the grandfather enjoyed spending time there, and the baby's movement she felt there for the first time. The ultrasound showed that it was a girl. Mary knew for sure a girl listens to music with her, swooning during opera arias and singing along. You can say that I'm making it up, but Emma liked Queen of Spades the most, Mary once shared with her grandfather. He looked strangely and kept silent for about 5 minutes, like a deaf mute, as if he was talking to himself but couldn't say it out loud. Only his eyes glittered. Mary only then realized that she had not told him how she had decided to name her girl at once, as she had already called her. Emma was born in February, in a windy blizzard in the night. With balloons and flowers, 3 people greeted them from the maternity hospital, Grandpa and Helen and Jack. Jack drove them home, and it wasn't until the friends left after a small buffet that Grandpa sat down across from Mary and asked, "Maybe you did let Emma's father know she was born after all. What do you think?" "Grandpa, it's been so long since you asked anything about him at all. I thought you never would. You don't want to know anything about him?" "I just saw that you didn't want to talk about him, and now it's that kind of day. Maybe you'll see things differently now." "It's the trouble with people like you that you judge others by your own judgment," Mary objected. "You're right in some ways, but don't forget I'm old. I've learned a few things and gotten over my naivete. Just bring me up to speed, at least briefly, while our girl is asleep." And Mary did. To her surprise, it was not at all hard for her to tell her grandfather about Anthony and how easily he had left her, as if retelling a movie or Dennis. It didn't have the slightest relevance to her anymore. She has a different life with other people in charge. Grandpa agreed with Mary. Everyone who should know about Emma's birth had already been notified. It turned out that Mary only thought the recent past had evaporated completely. She was contacted by Helen. We had a corporate party, a purely female group of people, and the conversation turned to how hard it is to raise a child alone. "I told your story about how you found your grandfather, saying that things are not always so bad. I didn't even say your name, but I told them you were my friend. The girls were surprised, happy for you and your daughter, and cheered up. It would seem that was the end of it. A day later, on Sunday, the doorbell rings. There's your ex on the doorstep, looking anxiously for you. I let him in. Or rather, I was just confused by surprise and forgot that I had to refuse the bore." I said, "What a phenomenon." Then he began to me clearly on the prepared-to-him script. He understands that I consider him a scoundrel. He fully agrees he is a scoundrel, but only realized everything, and so on in the same style. Probably watched a couple shows as a guide. I sit, nodding, pretending to be touched by his remorse. He sings to me that he would have apologized to you long ago, if you had not changed your phone number and place of residence. He lost track of you, you see. And he only dared to ask me now. He was so ashamed to show up. I was too lazy to ask him tricky questions. I was so disgusted. He thinks I'm a fool. No, I don't pretend to be a smart woman, but not to that extent. I don't know how to get rid of him. Jack was on a fishing trip with Andrew, which would have been easier. Anthony started begging me, "Give me an address. At least give me a phone number." I told him I had my own life and my own business. I had no time to deal with other people's. We haven't talked for a long time. Since we separated, we were just neighbors. "Maybe Mary's gone home. Why don't you go to your town if you have to?" And he didn't believe me for a second. He started going, "Don't lie to me. I didn't do anything to hurt you." He's angry and about to threaten me, even though it's not good for him. I was lucky there was no bite and Jack got home early. So Jack kicked him out. I talked to him outside and made him promise not to come back." Helen paused for a long sip of frozen coffee, patted the dog's withers, and, without waiting for Mary to comment, continued. "I'm just convinced I was from the beginning, that his appearance had something to do with my chatter. And he heard about you at the corporate party, that you were living well, so he decided to try his luck and get a fat piece. It just seems like a big city. In cases like this, you find out it's small. It turns out someone always sees something, hears something, and passes it on to the wrong person. And I'm an accountant. I have a personnel department nearby. I'm friends with our personnel officer. I told her the situation, asked her to look in the profiles where the husbands of those girls who were sitting with us in the company and listening to my story work. We got in, looked at it for a short time. Only 7 of the girls were married. And my hunch was right. Kate from sales has her husband's place of employment on her profile, just like your Anthony. You said the name, and I remember things like that. Remember when we were laughing? It's too much of a match. Didn't I mention you were my roommate the other day? Mary, I'm sorry, and keep in mind he might show up." "Oh, come on." Mary smiled, trying to be as serene as possible. "You've made such a detective out of nothing, even going into the personnel records. It wasn't your fault. You couldn't have foreseen anything, you just told me in the mood. I've always loved hearing other girls' stories, too. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. If you don't gossip, don't say nasty things behind your back, and just talk about a person, it's okay. Thank you so much for not being mad at me. I'd understand if you were mad at me. Are you going to do anything about it?" "What do you mean?" "I don't get it, Mary." "Shoving my stuff in my suitcase and running off somewhere. No one came to see me. Even if Anthony somehow finds out where I live, it's not like he's going to come here. Unless you told him it's a threesome. Maybe he's picturing a mansion with columns, an alarm system, a panic button, and a couple of grim bodyguards." "Yeah, I didn't mention that," Helen exhaled with a sigh of relief. "Oh, I even said that you have a gorgeous dog, a sheepdog. By the way, this breed is considered unpredictable and aggressive. By the way, you do have an alarm system, don't you?" Grandpa returned home lively, satisfied with the meeting with old friends. He joked, retold stories of his classmates, sent greetings from them to his granddaughter and great-granddaughter, and announced that he had missed them. Mary would not tell him about the incident with the girl's father. Not right, if only he would take care of her and Emma. He needs to be taken care of too, and there's no one else to do it but her. Of course she was scared at first, but just a little bit and at first. Anthony is not a villain or a criminal mastermind, but an ordinary selfish guy. Nothing to be afraid of at all. She'll think of something if he shows up. A month later, Mary almost forgot about the warning Helen she had no time to think about unpleasant things. Her daughter grew up, already sat in the crib and stroller, tried to sit even in a soft cocoon. When she saw the dog, she was happy and stretched her arms to him, trying to run them into his shaggy fur. "Don't worry," Grandpa reassured her confidently. He understands perfectly well that it's a puppy. Helen came almost every weekend with her son, and sometimes with Jack. But Mary also had a sudden urge to go to Chicago. Grandpa was supportive. "The baby's over 6 months old now. It's time for you to go out. Go out with Helen, at least just a carefree summer cafe. Moms need to rest too. Why don't you pump your milk and I'll feed just fine without you." I quietly read the literature about children and control, quietly the process of cultivation and upbringing. Grandpa grinned, and Mary went to Helen's house. They did not sit in an outdoor cafe and walked around the zoo, but still had a great time. They talked about coming here with Emma very soon and showing her bigger animals than sheepdogs, which would be interesting. They talked about when Emma gets a little older, Mary is going to open up a little beauty parlor. Grandpa wants to help her start a business she enjoys, and it would just be great if Helen would agree to do the bookkeeping there. They did laps of the zoo 3 times. Bruno didn't want to leave. When we managed to get him out, we bought ice cream and sat on a park bench with him. Mary took a bite of the ice cream with pleasure and heard a half-forgotten familiar voice from the side. She shuddered. It seemed to her that Helen did too. Bruno was running around the flower beds, eating his ice cream on the run. Anthony stepped out of the shade of a tree and stood in front of them. "Mary, hello. We have to go." Helen rushed over. "We're late. Let's go. "I'm listening." The last kindly indifferent words were meant for Anthony. "Where's our daughter?" he asked. making a worried face. "We don't have anything of ours," Mary explained peacefully. "I'm sorry if you can. I need you, you and your daughter. It just took me a long time to realize it. I'll do anything for you. If you'll let me try to start over. Helen told you I was looking for you, didn't she?" Helen stood aside by the flower bed and listened, not even pulling away from Bruno, who was jumping around her. Mary wrinkled her nose slightly. "Very, very theatrical. I have nothing to forgive you. It was the right thing to do. Thank you for your daughter. She's beautiful." "What do you mean?" Anthony said in a muffled voice, with reproach and admiration at the same time. "I don't hold a grudge, Anthony. And I won't be filing for alimony. Don't worry. You'll still have all your savings." "Mary, don't do this to me. You couldn't have gotten over it so fast. I know you. It wouldn't have been you. People don't change that fast. And we have a daughter, and you won't even let me look at her. I know you found your grandfather, but that's not the father. I'm not giving up until you give me a chance." Now he will play the macho man who has decided to fight for his love. Mary got up from the bench, slowly walked around Anthony, lightly stroked his shoulder. She made sure he took it as a good sign, and said in the same secure, peaceful, and calm voice, "People change. People change and fast, too, when circumstances force them to. I know you're aware of my financial changes, so you're under no illusions. I'm glad I wasn't married to you by the time I found my grandfather. You can find a much better option with an inheritance, even with a child. One more piece of advice. If you decide to look for me or my daughter, in any way to let me know about myself, you know who, what, and how in the 90s earned, with whom you had to communicate. The acquaintances of my grandfather and now of me are corresponding. My grandfather owes a lot to the reputable Mr. Jacobson. If that name means anything to you, people like that don't take away their protection for no reason. You can always turn to them to get rid of unwanted nuisances like you, Anthony. It's nothing personal. Consider it a sign of forgiveness." "Bitch." Anthony exhaled angrily into her ear and staggered back, just in case. He turned around and walked across the lawn toward the zoo. "Now he's going to disappear from the horizon," Helen said. "Listen, I wasn't expecting you. Have you really changed? I felt that I'm not alone in the world, and I've changed." "I know." "Mary, who's Jacobson? You never told me about him. Is he the guy your grandfather invented the production lines for?" "I don't even know his name. I just made him up." Passers-by turned around, some irritated, but most smiled. How cheerful, infectious laughter of these young, beautiful girls, and the baby runs around them so happy. Jack came to pick them up, as arranged. "Oh, I could hardly get through the traffic," he exhaled. "Can you imagine? Some uncle jumped up to Andrew and me while we were fishing and began to claim with a pompous attitude that we had taken his permanent place. That's the first time that's ever happened. And you know me, if he'd asked nicely, we'd have left. And you'd go to Mr. Jacobson," Helen joked. "Who the hell is that?" "No idea. We just made him up. He's supposed to be a powerful friend of my grandfather's." "Oh, girls, you're so grown up with children and you're still joking. I'll tell my grandfather that you've invented some dubious acquaintances." The group of people, laughing and smiling, continued walking through the park.